Night shift always comes with its own kind of silence. But this wasn't just quiet. The desert has a way of swallowing sound, wrapping everything in a thick blanket of nothing, like the world forgot how to breathe. I'm Declan Begay. Been with the Navajo Nation Tribal Police for 12 years now. I know these lands. Every canyon, every dust road, every rock formation. During the day, this place bakes under a sun that could fry an egg on your patrol car hood. At night, though, the cold creeps into your bones and doesn't let go. Tonight was one of those nights. I started my shift at 10. My route was set, the northern corridor. I'd begin at Chinle, follow the western boundary of Canyon de Chelly, then swing south to connect with old Route 191. 60 miles, 3 hours. Usually nothing happens. Warren Salagi was my partner that night. Good man, Warren. Didn't talk much, which I appreciated. He'd been on the force for 25 years, had 3 more until retirement. He'd seen everything there was to see out here, or so he thought. Should be a quiet one, he said, as we headed out to our vehicles. You run your radio check? Yeah, all clear. My radio sat on the seat beside me. Dispatch was Nayeli Kutu that night. She was solid, never panicked, always spoke clear. That mattered when you were alone on these roads. Unit 7, radio check, I said, pressing the button. A second of silence. Then Nayeli's voice came through, clean and steady. Unit 7, copy. Clear channel. Stay safe out there, Declan. Copy that. Warren climbed into his unit. He'd head east while I went west. We'd meet up at 10 to swap routes, standard procedure. I fired up the engine and flipped on the heat. Outside, the thermometer read 23 degrees. It was late February. Winter hits hard in the desert. I pulled out onto the road. The first half hour was uneventful. The road stretched out empty ahead of me, my headlights cutting through the darkness. Scrub brush and rocks lined both sides. In the distance, the mesas rose up like dark giants against the star-filled sky. The stars out here are something else. So bright they almost hurt to look at. The radio stayed quiet. Sometimes that's how night shifts go. Hours pass without a single call. When I reached the western boundary of Canyon de Chelly, I slowed down. This section was narrow, with rock walls rising up on both sides. My headlights bounced off the stone, creating shadows that seemed to move. The cold got worse. I cranked the heat all the way up. That's when I saw it. A vehicle sat in the middle of the road, headlights on. At first, I didn't react. This happens sometimes. Car breaks down, driver waits for help, but something felt wrong. The headlights were too steady, too bright. No flickering, no dimming, just solid beams cutting through the dark. I slowed to a stop about 50 feet back, reached for my flashlight, grabbed the radio. Dispatch, Unit 7. A second of silence. Then Nayeli's voice came back, but this time it sounded different, distorted. Unit 7, copy. The words stretched out like a recording played at the wrong speed. I frowned, pressed the button again. Dispatch, I've got a vehicle stopped on Canyon Road, mile marker 42. Running a check now. More silence. Then that same stretched out voice. Copy, 42. I looked at the radio. The signal light was green, showing full bars. But something wasn't right about that voice. I shook it off. Sometimes the canyons played hell with radio signals. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out of the unit. The cold hit me like a wall. My breath came out in white clouds. I could hear my boots crunching on the gravel as I approached the vehicle. It was a dark blue pickup truck, maybe 10 years old. Arizona plates. The engine wasn't running, I could tell that much. But those headlights stayed bright and steady. I moved closer, keeping my right hand near my service weapon. You learn to be cautious out here. People get strange when they're alone in the desert at night. "Tribal police," I called out. "Need you to step out of the vehicle." No response. No movement inside the cab. I came up on the driver's side, angling my flashlight through the window. The cab was empty. Driver's seat, passenger seat, both vacant. Keys hung in the ignition, but the engine was off. Those headlights shouldn't have been on. I tried the door handle. Unlocked, the door swung open with a metallic creak that seemed too loud in the silence. That's when I noticed the smell. Damp earth. Like rain on dry soil, except it hadn't rained in 3 weeks. The scent was strong, coming from inside the truck. I swept my flashlight across the interior. Nothing unusual at first. No bags, no personal items. The seats were old, cracked leather. Then my light caught something on the floor. Footprints. Wet footprints. On both the driver's side and passenger's side floors. But not normal footprints. These were covered in fine red sand, the kind you find deep in the desert. The prints were fresh, water still pooling around them. I knelt down to get a closer look. The prints led from the pedals toward the door, like someone had gotten out and walked away. But the sand was wrong. This wasn't road dust. This was canyon sand, the type you find miles from any road. And the water. Where had the water come from? I stood up, swept my flashlight around the area. The ground around the truck was dry. No puddles, no moisture, just hard-packed dirt and gravel. "Dispatch, Unit 7, I said into my shoulder radio. That same distorted voice came back. "Unit 7? The words seemed to echo, like they were bouncing off canyon walls that weren't there. "I need a registration check on Arizona plate." I read off the numbers from the rear plate. Silence. Then that voice again, but this time the words were wrong. "Unit 7, come back." Come back? That wasn't dispatcher protocol. I pressed the button again. "Dispatch, say again." "Come back, Declan." My name. She'd used my name. But the way she said it, stretched out and hollow, made my skin crawl. That wasn't Nayeli. That wasn't anyone. I looked at the radio on my shoulder. The light was green, showing a strong signal. But the voice coming through wasn't right. I turned back to the truck. Those wet footprints gleamed in my flashlight beam. The water hadn't evaporated. It should have, in this cold, dry air. But it sat there, pooling on the floor mats. I made a decision. I'd call Warren on his cell, bypass dispatch entirely. I reached for my phone. Dead. The battery icon showed full charge, but the screen wouldn't respond to my touch. I tried powering it off and on. Nothing. The headlights of the abandoned truck flickered once. Just once. Then they went out completely. Darkness swallowed everything. My flashlight seemed dimmer now, the beam barely cutting through the black. I could hear my own breathing, harsh and loud in my ears. The radio on my shoulder crackled with static, then fell silent. I was alone on a dark road with an abandoned truck and wet footprints that made no sense. That's when I heard it. Soft at first, almost like wind, but there was no wind. The air was completely still. Footsteps, on gravel, coming from behind the truck. I spun around, flashlight up, hand on my weapon. The beam swept across the road, catching nothing but rocks and darkness. The footsteps stopped. "Tribal police," I called out. "Show yourself." Silence. I waited, counted to 10 in my head. Nothing moved, nothing made a sound. Then my radio crackled to life again. "Declan, come back." The same words, the same wrong voice. I looked down at the radio. The green light pulsed in time with the words, like a heartbeat. I made another decision. I was getting in my unit and calling this in from somewhere with better reception. Whatever was happening here, I needed backup. I backed away from the truck, keeping my flashlight sweeping the area. Those wet footprints were still visible through the open door. Still fresh, still impossible. I reached my unit and climbed in, slamming the door behind me. Locked it. Hit the button to fire up the engine. Nothing happened. I tried again. The engine turned over but wouldn't catch. I could smell gasoline, like it was flooded. But I hadn't done anything to flood it. The radio mounted on my dashboard crackled to life. Unit 7. Why did you leave? I stared at the radio. This wasn't right. None of this was right. I grabbed my flashlight again, checking the mirrors. The abandoned truck sat behind me, its headlights still dark. The road ahead was empty. Then I saw them in my rearview mirror. Footprints. Wet footprints with red sand. Leading from the abandoned truck to my unit. Coming right up to my driver's side door. But I hadn't seen anyone. I'd been watching. There was no one out there. I looked down. Water was seeping under my door, pooling on the floor mat. Red sand mixed with it, spreading across the rubber. The radio spoke again, but this time the voice was clear. Too clear. You shouldn't have stopped, Declan. That was Nayeli's voice. Really, her voice. No distortion, no stretching, just her normal tone. But she hadn't said those words. She wouldn't say those words. I tried the engine again. This time it caught, roaring to life. I slammed it into gear and hit the gas. The unit lurched forward, tires spinning on the gravel. I didn't look back. Didn't want to see if anything was behind me. I just drove, pushing the unit as fast as I dared on that narrow road. The radio stayed silent. My phone was still dead. The heater blasted, but I couldn't get warm. After 5 miles, I finally slowed down, pulled over at a wider section of road. Sat there with the engine running, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. Wet footprints in a dry desert. A voice that wasn't a voice. Water and sand where there shouldn't be any. I looked at my floor mat. It was dry. No water. No sand. Just the usual desert dust. But I could still smell it. That damp earth smell. It filled the cab of my unit, thick and heavy. I grabbed my phone. It powered on normally now, showing full battery and signal. I called Warren. He picked up on the second ring. Yeah? Warren, it's Declan. You anywhere near Canyon Road? Negative. I'm out past many farms. Why? I need you to run a plate for me. Dispatches. I paused. How did I explain it? Having technical difficulties. Sure, give me the number. I read off the plate from the abandoned truck. Heard Warren typing on his in-car computer. Okay, coming up now. Registered to... Hold on, that's weird. What? This plate comes back to a vehicle that was reported abandoned 3 months ago. Owner said it broke down on Canyon Road, and when they came back the next day with a tow truck, it was gone. Never found. 3 months? Yeah. Why, did you find it? I looked in my rearview mirror, back down the dark road toward where I'd left the truck. Maybe, I said. I'll call you back. I ended the call and sat there, engine idling. 3 months. That truck had been out there for 3 months. But those footprints were fresh. The water was fresh. My radio crackled. This time it was really Nayeli, I could tell. Unit 7, you copy? I grabbed the handset. Yeah, I copy. I've been trying to reach you for 20 minutes. Your signal kept cutting out. Everything okay? 20 minutes? It had felt like 5 at most. Yeah, I'm good. Just some radio interference in the canyon. Copy that. Let me know if you need anything. Will do. I put the unit in gear and continued my patrol. But I kept checking my mirrors, watching for headlights behind me that shouldn't be there. Watching for wet footprints that made no sense. The rest of the night passed without incident. I finished my route, met up with Warren at the designated spot, and headed back to the station at dawn. But I couldn't shake that smell. Damp earth and red sand. It stayed with me, faint but present, even after I got home and showered and changed clothes. That was 3 weeks ago. The truck was never found again. I went back the next day with Warren in daylight. The spot where it had been sitting was empty. No tire tracks. No signs that anything had been there at all. Warren thinks I imagined it, or maybe saw a mirage. He doesn't say it, but I can tell. Nayeli believes me, though. She said the radio did act strange that night, that my signal kept dropping out and coming back with weird interference. But there's something she doesn't know, something I haven't told anyone. Last night, I was at home watching TV when my personal cell phone rang. Unknown number. I answered it. Silence on the other end. Then that smell, damp earth and red sand, filled my living room. And through the phone, so faint I almost missed it, I heard footsteps on gravel. Then a voice, distorted and stretched out. "Why did you leave?" I hung up, blocked the number. But I know it doesn't matter. Whatever was in that truck, whatever left those wet footprints, it knows where I am now. And I don't think it's done with me yet. 3 days after that phone call, I went back to work. I'd considered calling in sick, maybe taking some time off, but that would have required explanations I wasn't ready to give. How do you tell your sergeant that something from an abandoned truck is following you home? How do you explain footprints that shouldn't exist? Warren noticed I wasn't myself. We were doing a day shift together, patrolling the southern boundary near Ganado. The sun was high and bright, the kind of day where you could see for miles in every direction. Nothing could hide in that light. "You sleeping okay?" he asked after we'd gone an hour without talking. "Yeah, fine." "You don't look fine. You look like hell." I glanced at him. Warren wasn't one to pry, which made his question carry more weight. If he was asking, it meant I looked worse than I thought. "Just some weird calls," I said. "Wrong numbers, probably. At night?" "Yeah." He nodded, let it drop. We drove in silence for another 10 miles. Then he said something that made my hands tighten on the wheel. "I heard about another truck." "What?" "Another abandoned vehicle. Found yesterday morning on Route 12, up near the Chuska Mountains. Same deal, engine off, headlights on, nobody inside." My mouth went dry. "Who found it?" "Couple of hikers. Called it in around dawn. When the officer got there, truck was gone." "Gone?" "Yeah, he was maybe 30 minutes behind them. When he arrived at the location they described, nothing was there. He figured they got the spot wrong, but they were pretty insistent." I stared out at the empty road ahead. What kind of truck? Dark blue pickup, 10 years old maybe. They didn't get the plates. The same truck had to be. But how could it be in 2 places? How could it disappear and reappear? "You okay?" Warren asked. "You look pale." "I'm fine." But I wasn't fine. That truck was moving. Or something was moving it. And I had a feeling I knew why. The shift ended at 6. I drove home as the sun set, painting the desert in shades of orange and red. My house sat alone at the end of a dirt road, about a mile from the nearest neighbor. I'd always liked the isolation. Now, I wasn't so sure. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the truck for a moment, looking at my front door. Everything appeared normal. The motion sensor light above the door was off, meaning nothing had triggered it. The windows were dark, blinds closed like I'd left them. I got out and walked to the door. My keys jingled in the silence. I unlocked it and stepped inside, hitting the light switch. Nothing happened. I flipped it again. Still nothing. I tried the switch for the living room lamp. Dark. Power outage. That happened sometimes out here. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, sweeping it across the room. Everything looked normal. Couch, TV, coffee table. Nothing out of place. Then I smelled it. Damp earth. Red sand. My heart started pounding. I moved the phone's light to the floor. There, leading from my front door through the living room toward the hallway, were wet footprints. The same red sand. The same pooling water. I backed toward the door, hand on my service weapon. The footprints led deeper into my house toward my bedroom at the end of the hall. I should have left, should have gotten in my truck and called for backup. But this was my house, my space, and I was tired of being afraid. I drew my weapon and moved down the hallway. The footprints were fresh, water still glistening in the phone's light. They led right up to my bedroom door, which was closed. I'd left it open that morning, I was sure of it. I reached for the doorknob with my left hand, keeping the gun in my right. The metal was cold and slightly wet. I turned it and pushed the door open. My bedroom was empty. Bed unmade, closet door open, dresser covered with the usual clutter. Nothing unusual. Except the window was open. I never left my bedroom window open, ever. I crossed the room and looked out. The window faced the desert, miles of empty land stretching toward the distant mesas. Nothing moved out there. No vehicles, no people, no animals. But on the windowsill, pressed into the dust, was a single handprint, adult-sized. The fingers were too long, the palm too narrow. And it was wet, with red sand stuck to it. I slammed the window shut and locked it. Checked the other windows in the house, all secure. Went back to the living room and examined the front door. Still locked from the inside, deadbolt engaged. Whatever had left those footprints had gotten in without opening a door, and it had left through my bedroom window. The power came back on suddenly, all the lights blazing to life. I checked every room, every closet, every space something could hide. Found nothing. But the footprints remained, slowly drying on my floor, and that handprint on the windowsill stayed wet, no matter how many times I wiped it away. I didn't sleep that night. Sat on my couch with my gun in my lap and all the lights on, waiting for something to happen. Nothing did. By the time the sun came up, I was exhausted and jittery from too much coffee. I called in sick, told the sergeant I had the flu. He bought it without question. Then I called Nayeli. She was off duty, but I needed to talk to someone who might believe me. "Declan, what's wrong?" I told her everything. The truck, the footprints, the phone call, the handprint on my window. I expected her to think I was crazy. Instead, she was quiet for a long moment. "I need to tell you something," she said finally. "But you can't repeat it, okay?" "Okay. 3 years ago, before you transferred to this district, there was another officer. Name was Thomas Nez. Good cop, solid guy. He responded to an abandoned vehicle call one night, out on the same stretch of Canyon Road where you found that truck. What happened? He called in the plate, said he was going to investigate. Then his radio went dead. We tried reaching him for over an hour. When we finally found his unit, it was parked on the shoulder with the engine running and the door open. Thomas was gone. My stomach dropped. Gone? We searched for 2 weeks. Dogs, helicopters, volunteers from the community. Never found a trace of him. His unit had wet footprints on the floor covered in red sand. No other signs of struggle or violence. He just vanished. Why didn't anyone tell me this? Because 6 months later, he came back. I sat up straighter. He came back? Walked into the station one morning like nothing had happened. Said he'd been on vacation, didn't know what we were talking about. But Declan, he wasn't the same. His eyes were wrong. His voice sounded off, like someone doing a bad impression of him. And he smelled like damp earth. What did you do? The sergeant put him on leave, ordered a psychological evaluation. Thomas never showed up for the appointment. His house was empty when they went to check on him. And that night, his unit was found abandoned on Canyon Road. Same spot where he'd disappeared. Engine running, door open, wet footprints inside. And we never saw him again. I sat there holding the phone, trying to process what she was telling me. You think something took him? Something from that truck? I think that truck is a marker, Nayeli said. I think it appears when something is hunting, and I think Thomas got too close. So, what do I do? Don't go near it. If you see it again, drive the other way. Don't stop. Don't investigate. Don't call it in. Just leave. That's it? That's all I know. I'm sorry, Declan. I wish I had better advice. After I hung up, I sat on my couch staring at the dried footprints on my floor. Thomas Nez had disappeared, had come back wrong, then had vanished again, and I had stopped at that truck, had opened the door, had seen the wet footprints and smelled that damp earth smell. Whatever took Thomas was now interested in me. My phone rang. Unknown number again. I answered it without thinking. Silence, then footsteps on gravel, and that voice, stretched out and hollow. Come, back, Declan. Who are you? I asked. What do you want? The footsteps stopped. For a moment, there was only silence. Then the voice came back, clearer this time. You opened the door. What door? You opened the door, now you have to come back. Back where? But the line went dead. I looked at my call history. The number showed up as a string of zeros. Impossible. You can't call from a number that doesn't exist. I grabbed my keys and headed out. I didn't know where I was going. Just knew I couldn't stay in my house. Couldn't sit there waiting for wet footprints to appear again. I drove aimlessly for an hour, windows down despite the cold, trying to clear my head. The sun was bright overhead, the desert spreading out in all directions. In daylight, everything seemed normal, rational. The idea that something was hunting me felt ridiculous. Then I saw it. The dark blue truck, parked on the shoulder of Route 12, right where Warren had said the hikers reported it. Headlights on, engine off, nobody inside. I slowed down without meaning to, my foot easing off the gas. Every instinct told me to keep driving, to get as far away as possible, but part of me needed to know, needed to understand what was happening. I pulled over about 100 yards past the truck, sat there with my engine running, watching it in my side mirror. Nothing moved. The headlights stayed steady and bright. No one got in or out. Nayeli's warning echoed in my head. Don't stop. Don't investigate, just leave. But Thomas Nez hadn't left. He'd stopped. And whatever happened to him, I needed to understand it, because it was happening to me now. I put my truck in reverse and backed up slowly until I was parallel with the abandoned vehicle. Close enough to see details, but far enough to make a quick escape if needed. The truck looked exactly as I remembered. Same model, same color, Arizona plates, keys in the ignition. And there, visible even from a distance, were the wet footprints on the floor. Red sand, fresh water. I grabbed my phone and took pictures. Got shots of the plate, the footprints, the headlights. Evidence. Something concrete I could show people. Then I noticed something I'd missed before. On the rear bumper, barely visible beneath dust and dirt, was a bumper sticker. I couldn't make out what it said from my truck. Against my better judgment, I got out, walked slowly toward the vehicle, hand on my weapon. The desert wind had picked up, blowing dust across the road in small swirls, but around the truck the air was perfectly still. I got close enough to read the bumper sticker. It was old and faded, but I could make out the words, Thomas Nez, Tribal Police. Thomas Nez, this was his truck. The one he'd been driving when he disappeared 3 years ago. My blood went cold. I backed away quickly, heading for my own vehicle, but before I got there, I heard it. Footsteps on gravel, coming from behind Thomas's truck. I spun around, weapon drawn. Nothing there. Just the empty road and the abandoned truck and miles of desert in every direction. The footsteps continued, getting closer, but I couldn't see anything making them. Then I realized. The sound wasn't coming from behind the truck. It was coming from inside it. The driver's side door opened slowly, hinges creaking. And there, sitting in the driver's seat where there had been nothing a moment ago, was a figure. It looked like a person. Humanoid shape, arms and legs, a head with features. But the details were wrong. The proportions were off. It was like looking at a photograph that had been stretched and distorted, and it was dripping wet. Water ran off it in streams, mixing with red sand that covered its skin. The thing turned its head toward me. Where eyes should have been, there were just dark hollows. Where a mouth should have been, there was a gap that didn't move when it spoke. You opened the door, Declan. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. From the air itself. You saw inside. Now you have to come back. I'm not going anywhere with you, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The thing that wasn't quite human tilted its head. Water dripped from its face, pooling on the truck's floor. You will, it said. Everyone does. Thomas did. You will too. What are you? But it didn't answer. Instead, it simply faded. Not quickly, but slowly, like an image dissolving. Within seconds, the driver's seat was empty again. The door hung open. The wet footprints remained. I ran to my truck and got in, locking the doors. Started the engine and peeled out, tires kicking up gravel. I didn't look back. Didn't want to see if that thing was following. I drove straight to the station, parked in the lot, and sat there for 10 minutes, getting my breathing under control. My hands were shaking. The pictures on my phone showed the truck, the footprints, everything I'd seen. Except when I looked at the photo of the bumper sticker, it was just a blank, dirty bumper. No sticker. No name. Nothing. All the photos were the same. The truck looked normal. The footprints were gone. The headlights were off. It was like I'd photographed a completely different vehicle. I deleted the photos and went inside. Found Warren at his desk doing paperwork. Thought you had the flu, he said. Feeling better. Listen, I need to ask you something. Shoot. Thomas Nez, did he ever tell you what happened to him before he disappeared the second time? Warren's expression changed. Got careful. Why are you asking about Thomas? Just curious. Heard some stories. He studied me for a long moment. Thomas came back different. That's all I can tell you. Whatever he saw out there, it broke something in him. He wasn't the same person anymore. Different how? He couldn't stop talking about the truck. Said it was waiting for him. Said he could hear it calling at night. We thought he was having a breakdown. Warren paused. Then one night, he told me something strange. Said he'd opened a door he shouldn't have, and now the door wouldn't close. I felt sick. What door? He wouldn't say, just kept repeating it. I opened the door. I looked inside. Now it won't close. Then he disappeared. I thanked Warren and headed out. Got in my truck and drove home as the sun began to set. The whole way, I kept checking my mirrors, watching for headlights behind me. When I pulled into my driveway, I sat there for a moment, looking at my house. The motion sensor light clicked on. Normal. Everything looked normal. But I knew what I'd find inside. I unlocked the door and stepped in, turned on the lights. Wet footprints covered my floor, leading from every entrance, from the door, from the windows, from places where there shouldn't be any way in, all of them ending in the middle of my living room, where they formed a circle. And in the center of that circle, written in wet red sand, were 4 words. "Come back, Declan. Come home." I stood there, staring at the words as water dripped from the ceiling, even though there was nothing above but empty attic space. The thing from the truck was in my house, and it wasn't leaving. Worse than that, I understood now what Thomas had meant. I'd opened the door, I'd looked inside that truck, and in doing so, I'd let something see me. Something that wouldn't stop until I came back. The question was, where exactly did it want me to go? And what had happened to Thomas Nez when he finally gave in and went there? I had a feeling I was about to find out. I spent that night in my truck in the station parking lot. Couldn't go back to the house, not with those footprints covering every surface. Called the sergeant first thing in the morning and told him I had a water leak. Needed a couple days to deal with it. He approved without questions. Warren found me around 8 a.m. sitting in my truck with a cold cup of coffee. "You look terrible," he said. "Thanks. No, I mean it. You look like you haven't slept in days. What's going on?" I wanted to tell him, wanted to lay it all out, every impossible thing I'd seen. But how do you explain wet footprints that appear from nowhere? How do you describe something that looks human but isn't? "Just the water leak," I said. "It's worse than I thought." He didn't believe me. I could see it in his face, but Warren was good about respecting boundaries. "Listen," he said. "I'm going off duty in an hour. Why don't you come crash at my place? Get some real sleep. My wife makes great breakfast." I almost said yes. Almost accepted the kindness of a friend. But then I thought about those wet footprints appearing in my house. Thought about that thing sitting in Thomas's truck. What if it followed me to Warren's place? What if I brought this nightmare to his family? I appreciate it, but I'm good. Just need to get the leak fixed. He nodded slowly. "Okay. But Declan, if you need help, real help, you know where to find me." After he left, I sat there trying to figure out my next move. I couldn't keep avoiding my house forever. Couldn't live in my truck. And that thing, whatever it was, clearly wasn't going to stop. I needed answers. Needed to understand what I was dealing with. I drove to the local library, a small building in Chinley that served the whole region. The librarian, an older woman named Mrs. Dennison, had been there for 30 years. If anyone would know about strange occurrences in the area, it would be her. "Declan Begay," she said when I walked in. "Don't see you in here often." "Morning, Mrs. Dennison. I'm looking for some information." "About?" "Abandoned vehicles. Specifically, vehicles found on canyon roads with nobody in them." Her smile faded slightly. "That's an odd thing to be researching." "It's for a case. Historical context." She studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Follow me." She led me to a back room filled with filing cabinets. Old newspaper clippings, reports, records that hadn't been digitized yet. She pulled out a drawer labeled Unexplained Events, 1970 to 2000. "Take your time," she said. "I'll be at the front desk if you need anything." I spent the next 3 hours going through the files, and what I found made my blood run cold. The abandoned vehicles went back decades. The first report I found was from 1974. A truck found on Canyon Road, headlights on, nobody inside. The officer who responded, James Whitewater, filed a standard report. Nothing unusual, assumed the driver wandered off. 6 months later, James Whitewater disappeared while on duty. His unit was found on Canyon Road, engine running, door open. He was never seen again. Another report from 1983. Officer Sarah Keems responded to an abandoned vehicle. Filed her report. 3 months later, vanished without a trace. Officer David So, Officer Raymond Benally, Officer Jennifer Yazzie, and then 2021, Thomas Nez. Every 10 to 15 years, an abandoned vehicle appeared on Canyon Road. Every time, an officer responded. Every time, that officer eventually disappeared. Some took months, some took years, but they all vanished eventually. And I had just joined that list. I photocopied every report and took them back to my truck, spread them out on the passenger seat and tried to find a pattern. Something that might explain what was happening. One detail appeared in almost every report. The responding officers mentioned a smell, damp earth, red sand, and wet footprints inside the vehicle. Another similarity, all the officers reported radio difficulties, distorted voices, strange messages. But the most chilling detail was buried in a report from 1991. Officer David So had written a personal journal entry that was found after his disappearance. It was attached to his case file. The entry read, "I keep seeing the truck. Even when I'm not on duty, even when I'm at home, it's always there, just at the edge of my vision. And I can hear it. Not the engine. Something else. Like breathing. Like something alive. It's calling me back. Telling me I have to finish what I started. That I opened something and now I can't close it. I don't understand what it means. But I'm afraid if I don't go back, it will keep coming for me. It will never stop." That was his last entry. 2 days later, he disappeared. I drove back to the station and found Nayeli just coming on for her shift. "I need to talk to you," I said. We went to a conference room and I spread out all the photocopies, told her everything I'd found. She listened without interrupting, her face growing more concerned with every word. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "So you're saying this has been happening for 50 years? At least, maybe longer. The records only go back so far. And everyone who responds to that truck eventually disappears. Everyone except Thomas, and he came back wrong." She picked up one of the reports, scanning it. "What do you think it is, the truck?" "I don't know. A trap, maybe. Or a door, like Thomas said. Something opens when you investigate it. And once it's open, it won't close until... Until what? Until you go back. Until you finish whatever it wants you to do." Nayeli set down the report. "So, what are you going to do?" "I'm going back tonight, to Canyon Road. I need to find that truck and end this." "That's insane. Everyone who's done that has disappeared. Everyone who's done that was running away. They tried to avoid it, tried to hide. It didn't work. The thing kept coming for them until they had no choice." I gathered up the reports. "I'm not going to wait for that. I'm going to face it on my terms." "Let me come with you." "No. If something happens, if I don't come back, I need someone who knows the truth. Someone who can warn the next person." She looked like she wanted to argue. Instead, she pulled out her phone and showed me something. "Then, at least, take this." It was a recording app, already open and ready to use. Start recording before you get there. Everything you see, everything that happens, narrated into your phone. If something goes wrong, we'll at least have a record. I nodded. "Thank you." "Declan, be careful, please." I spent the rest of the day preparing. Made sure my truck was fueled up. Checked my service weapon, made sure I had extra ammunition. Wrote down everything I knew and left it in an envelope with Nayeli. As the sun began to set, I headed out to Canyon Road. The sky turned from blue to orange to purple as I drove. Stars started appearing, scattered across the darkening sky. I turned on the recording app. This is Officer Declan Begay, badge number 741. It's February 28th, about 8 p.m. I'm heading to Canyon Road, mile marker 42, to investigate a series of disappearances related to an abandoned vehicle. If you're listening to this, it means something went wrong. But hopefully, it also means you have the information you need to stop this from happening again. The road stretched out ahead of me, empty and dark. My headlights cut through the blackness, illuminating scrub brush and rock formations. The abandoned vehicle appears to be some kind of trap or lure. It targets law enforcement. Once you investigate it, once you open the door and look inside, something marks you, follows you. It won't stop until you return to a specific location. I believe that location is somewhere on this stretch of canyon. I passed mile marker 40. The canyon walls rose up on either side, dark and imposing. 5 officers have disappeared over the last 50 years. All of them responded to this same vehicle. All of them tried to run. None of them survived. The only one who came back, Thomas Nez, was changed. He wasn't human anymore. Whatever took him, it sent something else back in his place. Mile marker 41. The road curved, following the canyon wall. I'm going to try something different. I'm not running. I'm going to find out what this thing wants, where it wants me to go, and if possible, I'm going to close the door I opened. Mile marker 42. And there, sitting in the middle of the road exactly where I'd seen it before, was the dark blue truck. Headlights on. Engine off. Nobody visible inside. I slowed to a stop 50 feet away. Kept my engine running. I found the vehicle. It's here, right where it was the first time. I'm going to approach it now. I got out of my truck, leaving the door open and the engine running. Kept my phone in my left hand, weapon in my right. The recording app showed the timer ticking up. Everything was being captured. The vehicle appears unchanged. Dark blue pickup, Arizona plates, same wet footprints visible on the floor. I walked closer. The canyon walls seemed to press in on both sides. The air was completely still, no wind at all. The temperature had dropped, my breath visible in white clouds. I'm at the vehicle now, passenger side first. I looked through the window. Same scene as before, wet footprints, red sand, keys in the ignition. But now I could see something else. Something I'd missed before. On the passenger seat was a folded piece of paper. There's a note inside. I'm going to open the door. My hand reached for the handle. It was cold and wet. I pulled the door open and it swung wide with that same metallic creak. The smell hit me immediately. Damp earth, thick and heavy. But underneath it was something else, something organic and old. I grabbed the note, unfolded it. The handwriting was shaky, barely legible, but I could make out the words, "Follow the footprints. Come to the water. It's time to close the door." The note says to follow footprints to water. I'm going to document what I see. I moved my phone's light around the interior of the truck. The wet footprints covered the floor, but they also continued outside, leading away from the vehicle, across the road, toward a narrow gap in the canyon wall I hadn't noticed before. Footprints lead to an opening in the canyon wall, approximately 3 feet wide, can't see how deep. I'm going to follow them. I looked back at my truck one more time. The headlights were still on, engine still running. This was my last chance to turn back, to get in and drive away. But I'd seen what happened to the people who ran. It didn't work. The thing kept coming. It never stopped. The only way out was through. I'm entering the canyon gap now. The opening was narrower than it looked. barely wide enough for my shoulders. The walls were smooth and cold on either side. My phone's light showed the wet footprints continuing ahead, deeper into the canyon. I followed them. The gap twisted and turned, sometimes widening to several feet, sometimes narrowing so much I had to turn sideways. The sound of my breathing echoed off the stone walls. After about 5 minutes of walking, the gap opened into a wider space. A small canyon within the canyon, maybe 20 feet across. The walls rose up on all sides, at least 50 feet high, and in the center of the space was water, a pool, perfectly circular, about 10 feet in diameter. The surface was absolutely still, reflecting the stars overhead like a mirror, and around the pool, pressed into the damp earth, were dozens of wet footprints, all leading to the water's edge. I've found the water. It's a pool, circular, very still. Multiple sets of footprints around it, all sizes. This is where they came. All of them, the officers who disappeared. This is where they ended up. I moved closer to the pool. The water was dark, almost black. I couldn't see the bottom. Then I noticed something at the edge, a shape partially submerged. I aimed my phone's light at it. It was a badge, tribal police badge, rusted and old, but still readable. There's a badge in the water. I can see the number, 412. That was James Whitewater's badge number. He disappeared in 1974. I looked around the pool. There, partially buried in the mud, was another badge, and another, and another. 6 in total. 6 officers who had come to this place and never left. All their badges are here. They all made it to this pool, but they never came back out. My phone's light caught something else. On the far side of the pool, pressed into the canyon wall, was a handprint. The same impossibly long fingers, the same narrow palm I'd seen on my bedroom windowsill. And next to it, scratched into the stone, were words. Close the door. Enter the water. There's a message carved into the wall. It says, I have to enter the water. That's how I close the door. I stood there at the edge of the pool, understanding, finally, what this was. What the thing wanted. The truck was a lure. The footprints were a trail. And this pool was the destination. Everyone who responded to that abandoned vehicle eventually ended up here, and they all entered the water. But none of them came back. I thought about Thomas Nez, the only one who returned, except it wasn't really him. Something else had come back wearing his face. If I entered this water, would I disappear like the others, or would something come back wearing my face? I don't think I should go in. I think that's what it wants. I think this pool is how it takes people, how it replaces them. But even as I said the words, I could feel the pull. Something in the water, something old and patient, waiting. It had been waiting for decades, waiting for each officer in turn to arrive at this place, and now it was waiting for me. My phone buzzed. Unknown caller. I answered it. That voice clearer than ever before. You have to close the door, Declan. You opened it. You looked inside. Now the door won't close unless you finish what you started. What are you? We are what waits beneath. We are what the door keeps closed. But you opened it. Just a crack. Just enough. Now we can reach through. Unless you close it from our side. By entering the water, yes. And if I refuse, then the door stays open, and we keep reaching through into your house, into your life, into everyone you know, until you have no choice. I looked at the pool, at the badges of 6 officers who had stood where I was standing now, who had made the same choice. What happened to them, to the others? They closed the door. They kept it shut, They're still here, still watching, still guarding, because the door must always have someone on our side, someone to keep it closed. I understood then. This was a trap, but not the kind I'd thought. It wasn't designed to kill, it was designed to recruit, to find guardians, people willing to give up everything to keep something worse from getting through. The officers who came here didn't disappear. They stayed. They became the guards at the door, and Thomas Nez had refused, had tried to leave. So something else came back instead. Something that wore his face but wasn't him. If I go in, I don't come back. No. But the door closes, and nothing else comes through. Your family is safe, your friends, everyone. For how long? Until the next officer opens it, 10 years, 15, 20, then someone else stands where you stand now, and makes the same choice. I looked at my phone. The recording was still running, capturing everything. This was my choice. Go into the water and disappear, become another guard at whatever door this thing represented. Or refuse and let something wear my face while the real me stayed here forever. Or there was a third option. No, I said out loud. I'm not playing this game. I'm not going in the water, and I'm not letting you take my place. The water's surface rippled, the first movement I'd seen. Then the door stays open. Fine, let it stay open. But I'm leaving, and I'm taking this recording with me. Everyone will know about this place, about what you do. You won't be able to lure anyone else here. The ripples grew stronger. The water began to churn. You can't leave. Not now. Not after you've come this far. Watch me. I turned and headed back toward the gap in the canyon wall. Behind me, I could hear splashing. Something rising from the pool. Something that didn't want to let me go. I ran. The gap seemed narrower now, the walls pressing in. My phone's light bounced wildly as I sprinted through the twisting passage. Behind me, I could hear wet footsteps on stone. Getting closer. The gap ahead showed stars, the opening back to the road. I pushed through, my shoulders scraping the stone walls. I burst out onto the road. My truck was still there, still running, headlights still on. The abandoned pickup sat dark and silent. I ran to my truck and jumped in, slammed it into gear and hit the gas. The tires squealed as I accelerated away from that place. In my rearview mirror, I saw it, the thing that had climbed from the pool. It stood in the middle of the road, water streaming off its impossibly tall frame, watching me leave. I drove for an hour without stopping, put as much distance as I could between me and Canyon Road. Finally pulled over at a truck stop with bright lights and people. Normal people. Safe people. I checked the recording. Everything was there. Every word, every image, proof. But when I tried to upload it, tried to send it to Nayeli, the file corrupted. Just static and garbled audio, like the thing had reached through the phone and destroyed the evidence. The only thing that remained were the last words before the corruption. The door stays open. We'll be waiting, Declan. We'll always be waiting. That was 3 days ago. I'm back at work now. Told everyone I got the leak fixed, everything's fine. They believe me because what else would they think? But I know the truth. I opened the door. I saw what was on the other side, and I refused to close it. Now I see that truck everywhere. In my mirrors, in parking lots, at the end of my street. Always just at the edge of my vision, always waiting. The wet footprints still appear in my house, the phone calls still come. That voice still whispers through the static. But I'm not going back to that pool. I'm not closing that door. Because I realized something while I was standing at the water's edge. The thing in the pool, it wasn't trying to protect us. It was trapped, and it wanted me to take its place as prison guard. Those officers didn't disappear. They're still there, still in that water, still suffering, still watching that door for something that might never come through. I won't join them. I won't be another guard. Even if it means that thing keeps hunting me, keeps following me, keeps trying to drag me back. At least I'm still me, still human, still free. But I wonder sometimes late at night when the footprints appear on my floor and that voice whispers through my phone, how long that will last. How long can I resist before I have no choice but to return to that pool? How long before the door I opened swallows me whole? I don't have an answer. All I know is that tonight I'll be on duty again, patrolling the same roads, watching for abandoned vehicles, and somewhere out there, on a dark stretch of canyon road, that blue pickup is waiting, headlights on, engine off, door open, ready for the next officer who makes the mistake of stopping to investigate. Ready for the next person to open the door. A week passed, then 2, then a month. I kept working, kept patrolling, kept pretending everything was normal. But the appearances continued. The truck showed up regularly now, always in my rearview mirror, always just out of reach. The wet footprints appeared daily in my house, and the phone calls came every night at exactly 3 a.m. Warren noticed I was deteriorating. So did Nayeli. But what could I tell them? That I was being hunted by something from beneath a hidden pool? That I'd refused to sacrifice myself and now it wouldn't leave me alone? They'd think I'd had a breakdown. Maybe I had. 2 months after my visit to the pool, I was on a routine day patrol when I saw her. A woman standing beside a dark blue pickup on the shoulder of Route 12. The same truck, but this time someone was there. I slowed down, every instinct screaming at me to keep driving. But I'm a cop. It's my job to help people. I pulled over behind the truck and got out. The woman turned to face me. She was in her 40s, wearing jeans and a light jacket. Normal, human, nothing off about her. "Everything okay, ma'am?" I asked. "Oh, thank goodness. My truck just died. No warning, just stopped running." She smiled. "I don't suppose you could take a look." "I can try." I moved toward the truck, and that's when I noticed it. Her shadow was wrong. Too long, too dark, moving independently of her movements. I stopped. "Actually, ma'am, I think I should call you a tow truck." Her smile didn't falter, but her eyes changed, got darker, got deeper. "You know what I am," she said, not a question. "Yeah, then you know why I'm here. You're not getting me to go back to that pool." She tilted her head. "Oh, Declan, I'm not here to take you to the pool. I'm here to show you what happens when you refuse." She raised her hand and pointed down the road. "Look." I turned and saw my truck, except I was still standing beside it. My unit was there exactly where I'd parked it, but now there were 2 of them. One was real, the other had someone sitting in the driver's seat, someone who looked exactly like me. The thing wearing my face turned its head and smiled. Then it started the engine and drove away. "What did you just do?" "We tried to get you to close the door yourself," the woman said. "You refused, so we're closing it differently. That's you now, out there, living your life, doing your job. No one will know the difference. You can't. We already have. You'll stay here, in this moment, on this road, forever, until you finally decide to go to the pool and properly close the door. And in the meantime, something else will walk through your life. It will go to your home, it will work your shifts, it will talk to Warren and Nayeli, and slowly, gradually, it will bring others to the pool, because that's what we do. That's what the door needs. Fresh guardians, new watchers." I felt my legs give out, sat down hard on the roadside. How many? How many people are like me? Currently, 4. You're the newest. The others have been here longer, decades longer, still refusing to go to the pool, still hoping someone will rescue them. No one ever does. She knelt down beside me. Up close, I could see she wasn't quite right. Her skin had a waxy texture. Her eyes didn't blink. The offer still stands, Declan. Go to the pool. Enter the water. Close the door from the inside. Become a guardian. At least then you'll have purpose. At least then your sacrifice will mean something. And if I still refuse, then you stay here, watching your life be lived by something else, watching it slowly corrupt everyone you love. Because that's what they do. The replacements. They don't stay human for long. Eventually, they start bringing people to the canyon, start feeding the door, your friends, your family, everyone you care about, one by one. She stood up. Think about it. We have all the time in the world. You do too. Infinite time. Infinite chances to make the right choice. She walked to the truck and got in. Started the engine. It caught immediately, purring to life. She smiled at me through the window. See you soon, Declan. The truck drove away, leaving me sitting on the roadside. I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't work. Tried to reach for my phone, but my hands passed through it. I wasn't physical anymore. Wasn't really there. I was stuck, trapped between moments, between the real world and whatever hell the thing from the pool had created for me. I don't know how long I sat there. Time didn't seem to work right anymore. Sometimes the sun was up. Sometimes stars filled the sky. Sometimes the road was empty. Sometimes vehicles passed by, but no one saw me, no one stopped. Eventually, I managed to stand, managed to walk, but I couldn't leave the road. Couldn't go more than a few hundred yards in either direction before something pulled me back to that spot where I'd stopped to help the woman who wasn't a woman. 3 times, I saw Warren drive past. Once, he slowed down like he sensed something, but he didn't stop, didn't see me. Twice, I saw my replacement, the thing wearing my face, driving my unit, living my life. Both times it looked at me and smiled. I tried screaming, tried waving my arms. Nothing worked. I wasn't really there anymore. Then one night, Nayeli came. She pulled over right where I'd stopped, got out of her car, walked to the exact spot where I'd sat down. "Declan?" she called out. "I know you're here. I can feel it." I tried to respond, tried to speak. My mouth moved, but no sound came out. She pulled out a small object, a charm, looked handmade. "My grandmother gave this to me. Said it helps you see things that want to stay hidden." She held it up and looked through a hole in the center. Her eyes widened. "Oh my God. Declan, what did they do to you?" I could feel tears on my face, could feel them running down my cheeks. But I couldn't wipe them away, couldn't move toward her. "Listen to me," she said. "I've been researching this, the disappearances, the pool, all of it. There's a way to break the trap, but you have to go back to the canyon. You have to go to the pool." I shook my head violently. "Not to go in," she continued, "to destroy it, to break the door completely. If you can shatter what's holding it together, all the replacements dissolve. Everyone trapped like you goes free. The guardians in the water are released." She moved closer, even though she couldn't touch me. "But it has to be you. You're the one who opened this door. You're the only one who can destroy it." I tried to speak. Finally, managed to push out a single word. "How?" "The badges. The 6 badges in the water. They're anchors. They're what keeps the door solid. You have to remove them, all of them. Once they're gone, the door collapses. The pool drains. Everything trapped there is freed. Can't move, I forced out. You can if you want it badly enough. You're not really trapped, Declan. You're just convinced you are. The thing from the pool put that conviction in your head. But it's a lie. You can walk away anytime. You just have to choose to do it. I looked down at my feet, at the ground beneath me. It looked solid, looked real, but Nayeli was right, it wasn't. None of this was real. I took a step, then another. The pull was still there, trying to drag me back, but I pushed through it. "That's it," Nayeli said. "Keep going, I'll guide you. I'll help you find the canyon entrance." It took hours. Every step was agony, like walking through concrete. The thing from the pool was fighting me, trying to keep me trapped, but slowly, painfully, I made progress. Nayeli walked beside me the whole time, holding her grandmother's charm. She couldn't actually touch me or help physically, but just knowing she was there gave me strength. We reached the gap in the canyon wall just as the sun began to set. The opening looked smaller now, like it was trying to close itself. "It knows what you're planning," Nayeli said. "It's going to fight you, but you can do this. I believe in you." I looked at her one more time, then entered the gap. The passage fought me every inch. The walls pressed in, trying to crush me. The floor became slick, trying to make me fall. Strange whispers filled the air, speaking in voices of people I knew, trying to convince me to turn back. But I kept going. The space opened up into that same small canyon. The pool sat in the center, its surface perfectly still. And around it, standing in a circle, were the guardians. 6 figures, waterlogged and deteriorating but still human enough to recognize. James Whitewater, Sarah Keems, David So, Raymond Benally, Jennifer Yazzie, and Thomas Nez. They all turned to look at me. "Don't," Thomas said. His voice was hollow, echoing. "Don't destroy it. The door keeps something worse contained. If you break it, you'll release something that should never be free." "He's lying," came another voice. The woman who'd trapped me. She stood on the far side of the pool. "The guardians are just scared. Scared of being free. They've been here so long they don't know anything else." "Which one is telling the truth?" I asked. "Does it matter?" Thomas said. "You're already trapped, already gone. The only choice you have is to join us or be replaced forever. You can't win." But I noticed something. The guardians weren't standing in the water. They were standing around it. Like they were guarding the pool from the outside, not the inside. "You're not keeping something in," I said. "You're keeping something out." The woman's expression changed. Got angry. "The door works both ways," I continued. "It's not a prison, it's a gateway. And you're using the guardians to keep it open, not closed." Thomas nodded slowly. "Finally figured it out. Yes, we're not guards. We're anchors. We keep the door open so things from the other side can cross over. That's what the replacements are. Things that shouldn't be in our world." "Clever," the woman said. "Too clever. Now you'll have to join them sooner than we planned." She moved toward me, her form shifting, getting taller, less human, more like the thing I'd seen rise from the pool. But I was faster. I dove into the water. It was freezing cold, so cold it burned. I could barely see in the murky darkness, but I reached down, felt the bottom, started searching for the badges. Found one, James Whitewater's, pulled it free from the mud. The moment I did, the water began to churn. I heard screaming, but whether it was from the guardians or the thing pretending to be a woman, I couldn't tell. I found another badge. Sarah Keems, pulled it free. The pool started draining. Impossible. There was no outlet, nowhere for the water to go. But it was disappearing, being sucked down into nothing. I grabbed the remaining badges as fast as I could. David So, Raymond Benally, Jennifer Yazzie, Thomas Nez. One by one, I yanked them from the mud. The screaming got louder. The water level dropped. I could see the bottom now, could see it was just stone and mud. No door, no gateway. Just a pool someone had convinced 6 people was something more. The last of the water drained away. I stood in the empty basin holding 6 badges. The guardians began to fade, but they were smiling now, relieved. "Thank you," Thomas said. Then he was gone. The thing that had been a woman screamed once more, then exploded into black mist that dissipated in the wind. I climbed out of the empty pool and walked back through the canyon gap. It was wider now, easier to navigate. Nayeli was waiting at the entrance. "Did you do it?" she asked. I held up the badges. "It's over." She smiled. "Then let's go home." We walked back to the road together. My patrol unit was there, right where I'd left it 2 months ago. I could move normally now, could touch things, was solid again. "What about the replacement?" I asked. "The thing that's been living as me. Already gone. The moment you pulled those badges, all the replacements dissolved. Warren called me an hour ago, said you'd vanished mid-sentence while talking to him. Said it was the strangest thing he'd ever seen." I laughed, couldn't help it. After everything, that was the strangest thing? We drove back to the station together. I had a lot of explaining to do, a lot of reports to write. But I was free, really free. The abandoned truck never appeared again. The wet footprints stopped, the phone calls ended. But I kept the badges, all 6 of them, as a reminder. A reminder that not every door should be opened, and not everything that hunts is evil. Sometimes they're just desperate. Sometimes they're just trying to survive. And sometimes the scariest thing isn't what's on the other side of the door. It's what some people will do to keep that door open. I still work for tribal police, still patrol these roads. And sometimes, late at night, I think I see wet footprints on the side of the road, or catch that smell of damp earth and red sand. But I'm not afraid anymore, because I know the truth now. The door is closed, and this time it's staying closed. Some buildings have a feeling about them even before you know their history, like they remember things, bad things. You walk past, and something in your gut tells you to keep moving. Don't look too close. Don't ask questions. The old tribal warehouse was one of those places. I'm Solomon Yazzie, been with tribal police for 16 years now. Worked my way up from patrol to investigations. Seen a lot in that time. Domestic calls, drug busts, missing persons. The usual stuff you get in a community this size. But the warehouse call was different from the start. It came in on a Tuesday morning in early March. I was at my desk doing paperwork when dispatch patched through a call from Jonas Hashke. Jonas was a ranger with the Division of Natural Resources. Good guy, knew the backcountry better than anyone. "Solomon, got something weird out here. Thought you should know about it." "What's up, Jonas?" "I'm out past Red Mesa, checking on some grazing permits. There's an old warehouse out here, been sealed up for years. Chain and padlock on the door. But I keep hearing something inside." "What kind of something?" "Chains, metal scraping on concrete, like someone's dragging something heavy." He paused. "Solomon, this building's been locked for at least 30 years. Nobody's supposed to be in there." I grabbed my keys. "Stay there, I'm coming out." The drive took about 40 minutes. Red Mesa is out in the middle of nowhere, past the last cluster of houses, past where even the dirt roads give out to just tracks in the sand. Perfect place to put a warehouse if you wanted people to forget about it. Jonas was waiting in his truck when I pulled up. Behind him, maybe 50 yards off the track, sat the warehouse. It was a squat concrete structure, maybe 40 feet by 60, with a flat roof and no windows. The kind of building that exists purely for function, nothing else. Gray walls stained by years of dust and wind. "Thanks for coming," Jonas said as I got out. "I know it sounds crazy, but I swear I heard something. How long have you been here?" "About an hour. The noise stopped maybe 20 minutes ago." We walked towards the building together. The ground around it was hard-packed dirt and scattered rocks, no tire tracks except Jonas's and mine. No footprints leading to or from the door. The door itself was solid steel, rusted around the edges but still intact. A heavy chain ran through the handle, secured with a padlock that looked newer than everything else. The lock was weathered but not ancient. "Someone's been maintaining this," I said, examining the padlock. "This isn't 30 years old." That's what I thought. But who and why? I pulled out my phone and called the tribal administration office. After 3 transfers and 10 minutes on hold, I got through to someone in property management. "Old warehouse past Red Mesa?" the woman said. "Let me check the records." I heard typing, then silence. "Ma'am? That's strange." According to this, that building was sealed in 1991, emergency health closure, but the file is restricted. I can see that it exists, but I can't open it. Restricted how? Tribal Council authority. I'd need permission from the chairman's office to access it. Can you at least tell me who's been maintaining the lock? More typing. No maintenance records. According to the system, nobody's been authorized to access that building since it was sealed. I thanked her and hung up. Looked at Jonas. "You hear anything right now?" He tilted his head, listening. "No. Quiet." We approached the door. I put my hand on the steel surface. It was warm, which made no sense. The morning air was still cool, maybe 50 degrees. The door shouldn't have been warm. I knocked. The sound echoed hollowly inside. No response, no movement, no scraping chains. "Maybe it was rats," Jonas suggested, "or the wind moving something." "In a sealed concrete building with no windows?" He shrugged. "You got a better explanation?" I didn't. I took photos of the door, the padlock, the chain. Made notes about the location. "I'll follow up with the tribal council. See about getting that file opened. In the meantime, if you hear anything else, call me directly." "Will do." I headed back to the station and spent the rest of the day trying to get information about the warehouse. The tribal chairman's office referred me to the council secretary. The secretary referred me to the legal department. Legal said they'd need a formal request in writing. Bureaucracy at its finest. By the time I left that evening, I hadn't gotten anywhere, but something about that warm steel door stayed with me. And the restricted file. Why seal a building and then restrict all information about it? That night, I got a call at home. Jonas again. "Solomon, I'm back out at Red Mesa. You need to come now." "What's wrong?" "The chains, they're moving." I was in my truck and on the road in 5 minutes, didn't bother with a uniform, just threw on jeans and my badge. The drive felt longer at night. The road was pitch black, my headlights the only illumination for miles. Jonas's truck sat in the same spot as before, headlights aimed at the warehouse. I pulled up next to him and got out. "Show me." We walked to the building. Jonas had a powerful flashlight that he aimed at the door. The chain was still there, still locked, but it was moving, not swaying like in wind. Moving, sliding through the handle, link by link, like someone on the other side was pulling it. The padlock rattled against the steel door. Then the chain reversed direction and slid back through. We both stood there watching. The chain moved for maybe 30 seconds, then stopped. The padlock settled against the door with a soft clink. "You seeing this?" Jonas whispered. "Yeah." I approached the door carefully, hand on my weapon. Up close, I could hear something. Faint but distinct breathing. Slow and deep, like someone in a heavy sleep. I knocked on the door. Hard. 3 solid strikes. The breathing stopped immediately. The chains rattled once, violent and sudden, then went silent. "Who's in there?" I called out. "This is Tribal Police. Identify yourself." No response. Just silence. I tried the padlock. Still secured. Pulled on the chain. Solid. No way anyone was getting in or out without a key or bolt cutters. I walked around the building, checking for other entrances. Found none. The walls were solid concrete. No doors, no windows, no vents, just gray walls and that flat roof. "How do you seal a building with no ventilation?" Jonas asked. "You don't. Not if you want to store anything in it. Place would fill with mold and rot." "So where's the air coming from? For whoever's breathing in there?" Good question. I called dispatch and requested backup. Also asked for someone from maintenance to meet us with bolt cutters and the contact information for whoever had authority over sealed buildings. While we waited, the chains moved twice more. Same pattern. Sliding through the handle, reversing, stopping. Like someone testing the locks from inside, making sure they held. Warren Salagi showed up first. He'd been my partner before I moved to investigations. Good cop, dependable. "Solomon, Jonas." He nodded to both of us. "Dispatch said you got someone locked in a building?" "Maybe. Watch the door." We stood there in the dark, 3 grown men staring at a steel door. I felt ridiculous. Then the chains moved again, and Warren's expression changed. "Okay, that's not normal." "No, it's not." Maintenance arrived 20 minutes later. Guy named Albert, older fellow who'd worked for the tribe for decades. He brought bolt cutters and a puzzled expression. "I remember when they sealed this place," he said, examining the padlock. "Was working maintenance back then. They brought in a crew from outside, wouldn't let any of us near it, just told us to stay away." "You remember why they sealed it?" "Health issue, that's what they said. Something contaminated. Had to close it down for safety." He looked at the door. "But I always thought that was strange." "Why?" "Because the week before they sealed it, there were ambulances out here 3 times in 4 days, always at night. They'd go in with stretchers and come out with people on them. Covered up, couldn't see faces." "You think someone died in there?" "I think multiple people did. And I think whatever killed them, the tribe decided to lock it up rather than clean it out." He cut through the padlock and chain. The metal gave way with a sharp snap. The chain fell to the ground in a heap. "You want me to open it?" Albert asked. "No, I got it." I pulled on the door handle. It didn't budge. Tried again, putting my weight into it. The door opened about an inch, then stopped, like something was blocking it from inside. Warren helped me. Together, we managed to force it open about 6 inches, enough to see inside. The beam from my flashlight cut through the gap. What I saw made no sense. The interior was spotless, gleaming. The concrete floor looked freshly poured and sealed. The walls were smooth and clean, no dust, no cobwebs, no signs of age. And the space was empty, completely empty. No equipment, no storage, no furniture. Just clean concrete and steel. "That's impossible," Jonas said, looking over my shoulder. "Building's been sealed for 30 years. Should be filthy." We pushed harder on the door. Whatever was blocking it gave way suddenly, and we nearly fell inside. The door swung open all the way, revealing the full interior. It was exactly as it appeared through the gap. Clean, empty, silent, and cold. The temperature inside was at least 20 degrees colder than outside. Our breath came out in visible clouds. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12, Warren said into his radio. "We've opened the sealed warehouse at Red Mesa, requesting crime scene unit and supervisor presence." While we waited for more people to arrive, I walked to the perimeter of the interior. The building was exactly what it looked like from outside. Single room, concrete walls and floor, steel roof. No doors or hatches, no vents or windows, and no way anyone had been inside. The door had been locked and chained from the outside. Even if someone managed to get in, they couldn't have locked it behind them. But I'd heard breathing. We'd all seen the chains move. In the far corner, something caught my flashlight beam. I walked over and knelt down. It was a handprint, pressed into the concrete like the floor had been wet cement when someone touched it. But the concrete was old and hard. You couldn't press into it now, no matter how hard you tried. The print was small. A woman's hand, or maybe a child's. The fingers were spread wide, like someone had been pushing themselves up from the floor. "Got something here," I called out. The others came over. Warren photographed the print while Jonas measured it. 7 inches from thumb to pinky, Jonas said. Adult woman, probably. I looked around the print for others, found 2 more. Both handprints, both pressed into solid concrete. Both positioned like someone had been crawling. The prints led toward the door, stopped about 10 feet away. After that, nothing, just clean floor. "Where'd she go?" Warren asked. I didn't have an answer. The crime scene unit arrived an hour later, along with Sergeant Rita Hosteen. Rita had been with the department for 25 years. If anyone would know what to do with this situation, it was her. She walked through the building slowly, taking in every detail, examined the handprints, studied the walls and ceiling. Finally, she turned to me. "Solomon, you said you heard breathing?" "Yes, ma'am, and the chains were moving on their own." "Show me exactly where you heard the breathing." I led her to the door, pointed to where I'd been standing. She put her ear against the steel and listened. After a moment, her expression changed. She stepped back quickly. "Everyone out, now." We didn't argue. Something in her voice made it clear this wasn't a request. Once we were outside, she pulled me aside, kept her voice low. In 1991, this building was used for medical quarantine. 3 people died in there. The tribe sealed it rather than risk whatever killed them spreading. What was it? Disease? They never figured it out. The bodies were cremated immediately. The building was sealed. Everyone involved was told to keep quiet. She looked at the open door. But there were rumors. People said the 3 who died weren't sick when they went in. They were fine, healthy. But something in that building changed them. Changed them how? Made them into something else. Something that looked human but wasn't. She met my eyes. I didn't believe it at the time. But Solomon, I just heard what you heard, that breathing. It's not human. The rhythm's wrong, too slow, too deep. So, what do we do? We seal it again, tonight, and we don't come back. But the handprints are 30 years old. Whatever made them is either gone or... She trailed off. Or it's still in there. Either way, we're not equipped to handle it. I wanted to argue, wanted to investigate properly. But Rita was right. Something about this building was deeply wrong. We sealed the door and put on a new chain and padlock. Triple-checked that it was secure. Then we all left. I didn't sleep that night, kept thinking about those handprints, about the breathing, about the way the chains had moved on their own. And I kept wondering if 3 people died in there 30 years ago and the building was immediately sealed. Who made those handprints? The next morning, I went back to the tribal administration office. This time, I wasn't asking permission. I used my badge to get past the secretary and walked straight into the chairman's office. "I need to see the file on the Red Mesa warehouse," I said. "Now." The chairman, an older man named Robert Nez, looked up from his desk. He didn't seem surprised to see me. "I was wondering when you'd come asking," he said. He pulled a folder from his desk drawer and slid it across. "This doesn't leave this office. You read it here, then you leave it here. Understood?" "Understood." I opened the folder. Inside was a medical report dated March 1991. It detailed an incident at the warehouse involving 3 tribal health workers. They'd been sent to investigate reports of contamination. When they didn't return after 6 hours, a search team was sent in. The health workers were found alive but unresponsive. They were breathing but wouldn't wake up. No visible injuries, no signs of poisoning, just unconscious. They were transported to the hospital. All 3 died within 24 hours. Cause of death, unknown. The autopsy reports were attached. I read through them, feeling sick. All 3 bodies showed the same anomalies. Internal temperature was 20 degrees below normal. Blood had partially crystallized. Lungs were clear but showed frost damage, like they'd been frozen from the inside. But the building wasn't cold. The report specifically noted that the temperature inside was normal when the search team entered. The last page of the file was a handwritten note from the medical examiner. Just 3 sentences. "Whatever happened to these people, it wasn't natural. I recommend the building be sealed and never opened again. Some doors should stay closed." I looked up at Chairman Nez. "You knew about this and you kept it quiet?" "We did what we thought was best, to protect people. 3 people died." "Yes. And if we'd told everyone the truth, more might have gone in there trying to figure out what happened. We couldn't risk it." "So you just locked it up and hoped everyone would forget?" He leaned back in his chair. "Solomon, I was on the council back then. I voted to seal that building. I stand by that decision. Some things are better left alone. But it's not staying alone. The chains are moving. We heard breathing. There are handprints in there that shouldn't exist. Then seal it better. Post guards if you have to, but don't open it again." I wanted to argue more, but I could see it was pointless. The decision had been made decades ago. Nothing I said would change his mind. I left the office and drove back out to Red Mesa. The warehouse sat quiet in the midday sun, door sealed, chain secured. From a distance, it looked harmless, just another forgotten building in the desert. But I knew better now. I sat in my truck and watched it for an hour. Nothing moved, nothing made sound, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside was watching me back, waiting. And I wondered, if those 3 health workers died of extreme cold, why was the door warm when I touched it? What exactly was generating heat inside a sealed concrete box with no power and no vents? I didn't have an answer, but I was going to find out. Against my better judgment, and definitely against the chairman's orders, I couldn't let it go. There was something about those handprints that stayed with me. The way they led toward the door and then just stopped. Like whoever made them had simply vanished mid-crawl. I pulled every string I had, called in favors from people in adjacent departments. Finally got through to someone in tribal records who owed me from a case 3 years back. "I need the personnel files for 3 health workers who died in '91, I told her. "March, specifically." "Solomon, those files are sealed." "I know. But I need names at least. Just names." She was quiet for a moment, then, Give me your personal email, not your work one." 20 minutes later, I had what I needed. The 3 health workers were named Sarah Benally, Marcus Zinni, and Rebecca Yazzie. Rebecca was my father's cousin. I'd never known her. She died 4 years before I was born. I drove to my father's house that evening, found him in his workshop behind the house, carving a piece of juniper wood. He looked up when I entered. "Solomon, this is a surprise. Dad, I need to ask you about Rebecca." His hands stilled on the wood. "Why?" "I'm working a case. Her name came up." He set down his carving knife carefully. "What kind of case?" "I can't give you details, but I need to know about her. What she was like, what happened." My father was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "Sit down." I pulled up a stool. Rebecca was younger than me by 8 years, smart girl, went to school to become a nurse, came back to work for tribal health. She was always helping people. He picked up his knife again, but didn't use it, just held it. Then one day, she volunteered for some kind of investigation, something at an old warehouse. They told us it was contaminated, that she was checking for environmental hazards. What happened? They said she got sick, some kind of exposure. She died in the hospital. He looked at me. "But Solomon, I saw her body before they cremated her. That's something I've never told anyone. I snuck into the morgue at night." "What did you see?" She looked frozen, like she'd been in a deep freeze for days. Her skin was blue-white. Her eyes were open, but there was frost on the lashes. And her expression... He set down the knife, his hands shaking slightly. She looked terrified, like she'd died seeing something awful. "Did they tell you what actually happened?" "No. They rushed the cremation. Wouldn't let the family have a traditional funeral, just burned her body and told us to move on." He met my eyes. "You going back to that warehouse, aren't you?" "I have to." "No, you don't. You really don't. Whatever's in there, it took Rebecca from us. Don't let it take you too." I left my father's house more determined than before. 3 people had died and nobody wanted to talk about why. The tribe had sealed the building and buried the truth. But the truth was still there, waiting behind a steel door and a chain. I needed help. Someone with medical knowledge who wouldn't ask too many questions. I called Tara Nantan. Tara was a field medic who'd worked with tribal police for the past 5 years. She'd seen everything from car accidents to gunshot wounds. If anyone could help me understand what happened to those health workers, it was her. We met at a diner in Chinle. I laid out everything I knew: the sealed warehouse, the deaths, the medical report, the frozen bodies. Tara listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "You realize, this sounds insane." "I know. Hypothermia doesn't work like that. You can't freeze from the inside out, not without extreme external cold. And even then, it takes hours. But that's what the autopsy report said. Frost damage to the lungs. Crystallized blood." She pulled out her phone and started typing. "Let me look something up." After a minute, she showed me the screen. "There's a condition called paradoxical undressing. Sometimes happens with severe hypothermia. The person feels like they're burning up, so they take off their clothes. The body's temperature regulation is so confused it sends the wrong signals. So they felt hot while freezing to death? Possibly, which might explain why the building felt warm to you. If something in there was causing extreme hypothermia, the victim's perception would be completely wrong. But how? There's no power in that building. No way to generate cold. I don't know. But if you're going back in there, which I assume you are despite every logical bone in my body saying don't, then I'm coming with you. Medical perspective might be useful. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm volunteering." She finished her coffee. "When do we go?" "Tonight, after dark." less chance of someone seeing us. We met at 10 p.m. at the turnoff to Red Mesa. I'd brought bolt cutters, flashlights, and a thermal camera I'd borrowed from the evidence room. Tara brought a medical kit and a thermometer that could measure extreme temperatures. The warehouse sat in darkness, no different from any other night, but knowing what I knew now, it looked more ominous, like something crouching in the dark. We approached carefully. The chain and padlock I'd put on were still there, untouched. I cut through them and let the chain fall. "Last chance to back out," I said to Tara. "Not a chance. Let's see what's in there." I pulled the door open. The cold hit us immediately. Tara checked her thermometer. 32 degrees, freezing point. Outside is 65. I know, this doesn't make sense. We stepped inside. The interior looked exactly as it had before. Clean, empty. Our breath came out in white clouds. I could see goosebumps rising on Tara's arms. I pulled out the thermal camera and scanned the room. The walls showed blue, indicating cold. The floor showed blue. Everything was cold, except one spot in the far corner, where the handprints were. That spot glowed orange-red on the thermal camera. Hot. "Tara, look at this." She came over and we both stared at the camera screen. The handprints were radiating heat. Not just warm, hot. The camera registered over 100 degrees. "How is that possible?" Tara whispered. I knelt down and held my hand above the prints. Could feel the heat rising from them, but the concrete around them was ice cold. "Solomon, we need to be careful. If something can generate this kind of temperature differential, we don't know what else it can do." I stood up and swept the thermal camera around the room again. Everything was uniform cold except those handprints. Then I saw something else. In the center of the room, about 6 feet off the ground, was a small heat signature. Just a spot, maybe the size of a basketball, hanging in midair. "You seeing this?" Tara looked at where I was pointing. To the naked eye, there was nothing there. Just empty space. But on the thermal camera, clear as day, was a sphere of heat suspended in the cold air. We approached it slowly. As we got closer, I could feel warmth on my face, like standing near a space heater. "Tara, put your hand near it. Tell me what you feel." She extended her hand cautiously toward the empty space, stopped about 6 inches away. "Heat, definite heat, but Solomon, there's nothing there." I pulled out my phone and turned on the recording function. "This is Officer Solomon Yazzie, March 16th, approximately 10:45 p.m. Inside the sealed warehouse at Red Mesa. We're documenting an anomalous heat source that's invisible to the naked eye but shows clearly on thermal imaging." I moved the thermal camera around the sphere. It didn't move or change, just hung there, radiating heat into the frozen air. "I'm going to touch it," I said. "What? No, bad idea. I need to know what it is." "Solomon, 3 people died in here." "I know. But standing here staring at it isn't going to give us answers." Before she could stop me, I reached out and put my hand into the space where the heat signature showed. Warmth, pleasant warmth, like putting your hand in bath water. But underneath that, something else. A pulse, like a heartbeat, slow and deep. I pulled my hand back, looked at my palm. Nothing unusual, no burns, no marks, but I could still feel that pulse, like it had transferred into my skin. "You okay?" Tara asked. "Yeah, but something's definitely there. I felt it." We documented the heat sphere for several more minutes, took photos with the thermal camera from every angle. Then we moved on to examine the rest of the room. The handprints near the wall were still radiating heat. But now I noticed something else. There were more of them. handprints I hadn't seen before scattered around the room, all pressed into solid concrete, all glowing orange on the thermal camera. "How many people were in here?" Tara asked. I counted. At least 8 different handprints, but only 3 people died. Maybe the others got out before... Before what? Before whatever happened to freeze Rebecca and the others from the inside out. We were about to leave when I heard it. That breathing sound, slow and deep, coming from everywhere and nowhere. Tara heard it too. "What is that?" "Same thing Jonas and I heard before." The breathing continued. In, out, each breath taking maybe 10 seconds, way too slow for a human. Then the temperature dropped, suddenly and drastically. The thermometer in Tara's hand plummeted from 32 degrees to 20, then 15, then 10. "Solomon, we need to leave now." But the door was closed. I hadn't closed it. It had been open when we came in. Now it was shut tight. I ran to it and pushed. It didn't budge. Tried again, putting all my weight against it. Nothing. The door was sealed from outside somehow. "Try your radio," Tara said. I grabbed my radio. Dead. Pulled out my cell phone. No signal. We were trapped. The breathing got louder, closer, but I still couldn't see anything making the sound. Tara was shivering now. So was I. The cold was getting worse. I could feel it seeping into my bones. "The heat sphere," I said. "Get near it." We moved to the center of the room where the warm spot was. The temperature there was bearable. Not comfortable, but we weren't freezing. "Solomon, look." She pointed at the floor. Ice was forming on the concrete, spreading from the walls toward the center, creeping toward where we stood. On the thermal camera, I could see the hot handprints starting to dim, like whatever heat they contained was being drained away. The breathing sound became a voice, distorted and wrong, but understandable. "Why did you come back?" It wasn't asking. It was stating a fact. Whoever or whatever this was, it thought we were someone else. Someone who'd been here before. "We're not who you think we are," I said out loud. The breathing paused. Then, "You opened the door again. We're just investigating. We'll leave. We didn't mean to disturb anything." "Too late. You saw..." "Saw what?" But the voice didn't answer. Instead, the ice stopped spreading. The temperature stabilized, and slowly, very slowly, the door opened, just a crack. Just enough. "Go," I told Tara. "Now." We ran for the door, squeezed through the gap and stumbled out into the night air. The door slammed shut behind us with a metallic boom. We kept running until we reached our vehicles. Only then did we stop and look back. The warehouse sat quiet and dark. No light from inside, no sound. Just a sealed building in the desert night. Tara was breathing hard. "What the hell was that?" "I don't know." "That voice. Solomon, that wasn't human." "No, it wasn't." We stood there for several minutes, neither of us wanting to move. Finally, Tara said, "We need to report this." "Report what?" "That we illegally entered a sealed building and heard a voice that shouldn't exist? They'll think we're crazy. Then what do we do?" I looked at the warehouse. At the chain and padlock lying on the ground where I'd cut them. At the door that had closed and opened on its own. We seal it again. We document what we found. And we figure out what the hell is going on before someone else gets hurt. We secured the door with a new chain. I made sure it was tight. Then we left. But as I drove away, I kept checking my rearview mirror. Kept expecting to see that door open again. Kept hearing that slow, deep breathing in my head. And I kept thinking about the voice. about what it said. You opened the door again. Again. Like this had happened before. Like people had been coming to this building, opening it, and something inside had been waiting for them. I needed to find out who else had been there. Who else had opened that door? Because I had a feeling Rebecca and the others weren't the first. And Tara and I wouldn't be the last. I spent the next 3 days going through old records, birth certificates, death certificates, hospital reports, looking for anyone who'd died of unexplained hypothermia in the area over the past 50 years. Found 4 cases. 1967, Daniel Tso, tribal maintenance worker. Found dead in his truck in summer. Cause of death, extreme hypothermia. No explanation for how it occurred. 1979, Linda Benally, tribal health worker. Collapsed at home. Died hours later. Autopsy showed internal freezing. 1991, Rebecca Yazzie, Marcus Zinni, Sarah Benally, the 3 I already knew about. 2003, Robert Nez, not the current chairman, a different Robert Nez. Tribal ranger. Found unconscious near Red Mesa, died in hospital. Same symptoms as the others, 7 people total, all connected to the tribe. All died of impossible cold. And all of them, according to employment records, had worked on or near Red Mesa at some point before their deaths. I made a list of their names and dates, looked for patterns. The deaths came in clusters. Multiple people in a short time, then nothing for years. Like something was feeding, then going dormant, then waking up again. I showed Tara the list. "This is bigger than we thought," she said. "This has been happening for decades. I need to talk to someone who was there, someone who survived." "You think anyone survived?" "The handprints, at least 8 different prints, but only 7 deaths. Someone got out." Finding survivors proved difficult. Most of the families didn't want to talk. The few who did had no information to share. Their loved ones had just gotten sick and died. No warning, no explanation. Then I got a call from an unexpected source. Chairman Robert Nez. "Officer Yazzie, I heard you've been making inquiries about the warehouse." "Yes, sir. Stop." "I can't do that. You're going to get yourself killed. Or worse." "Worse?" He was quiet for a moment. "Come to my office. Tonight, after everyone else has gone home, there's something you need to know." I met him at 8 p.m. The administration building was empty, all the office workers long gone. He was waiting in his office with a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses. "I don't normally drink on duty," I said. "You're going to want to after what I tell you." He poured 2 glasses and slid one across the desk. That building wasn't always a warehouse. What was it? Medical facility, built in 1965. It was supposed to be a clinic for people in the remote areas, but the tribe had another purpose for it. He pulled out a folder, different from the one he'd shown me before. This one was older, pages yellowed with age. In the 60s, the government was running experiments, testing things on tribal members without their knowledge or consent. When our leadership found out, they demanded it stop. The government refused, said it was for the greater good, national security. What kind of experiments? Cold exposure. They were testing how long humans could survive extreme cold. They'd put people in rooms and drop the temperature, monitor how long it took for hypothermia to set in. Some people died, some survived, but were never the same. I felt sick, and the warehouse was one of their facilities, not officially. On paper, it didn't exist, but the tribe knew. We knew what was happening in there and we couldn't stop it. Didn't have the resources or the legal authority to fight the federal government. So what happened? 1967, the experiments ended. Officially. The government pulled out, sealed the building, told us to forget it existed. He took a drink. But the building didn't forget. Whatever they did in there, whatever they unleashed, it stayed. And every few years, it reaches out, finds someone, takes them. Reaches out how? You tell me, you've been inside. What did you see? I described the heat sphere, the handprints, the voice. He nodded slowly. The people who died in those experiments, they're still there. Not their bodies. Something else. Something that got frozen into the building itself. And when someone opens that door, they wake up. They reach out. They try to take the warmth from living people to replace what was taken from them. That's impossible. You heard the breathing. You felt the cold. You telling me that was natural? I couldn't. Because it wasn't natural. None of it was. One of the handprints led to the door and stopped, I said, like someone vanished mid-escape. That was the only survivor, 1967. A maintenance worker named Daniel So. He was checking on the building after it was sealed. Opened the door. Something grabbed him, tried to pull him in, but he fought his way out, left those handprints as he crawled away. He survived? For 2 months. Then he died of hypothermia in his truck in the middle of summer. Whatever got hold of him, it didn't let go completely. It just took longer to finish what it started. I thought about the handprints I'd seen. 8 different sets. How many people were in the experiments? 7 confirmed, but there could have been more. Records were destroyed. 7 people frozen in government experiments. 7 heat signatures in a cold building. 7 handprints pressed into concrete. The math was obvious. So the people who died weren't being attacked, I said. They were being taken, absorbed. Their warmth, their heat, their life, whatever you want to call it, was being drained to feed what's left of the experiment victims. That's my theory, though I can't prove it. Why didn't you tell me this before? Would you have believed me? Or would you have thought I was crazy? He poured himself another drink. Now you've seen it yourself. You know I'm telling the truth. So I'll tell you again. Stay away from that building, seal it, guard it if you have to, but don't open it again. I left his office with more questions than answers. The chairman's story explained some things, but not everything. The voice had said, "You opened the door again," like it was waiting for someone specific, someone who'd been there before. The only person who'd opened that door and survived even briefly was Daniel So, and he died in 1967. I needed to talk to his family. Tracking down Daniel So's relatives took another 2 days. Finally found his son, Jacob So, living in Farmington. He was in his 60s now, worked as an electrician. I called him and explained I was investigating his father's death. "Dad died before I was born," he said. "I don't know much about him." "Do you know anything about his work? Where he worked before he died?" Mom said he was a maintenance worker for the tribe. Fixed things, mostly. But she didn't like talking about him, said his death was strange, unnatural. "Did she ever mention Red Mesa?" Long pause. "How do you know about Red Mesa?" "I'm investigating incidents that occurred there. Your father was involved. Mom made me promise never to go there. She said Red Mesa was cursed. Said something in the ground there was wrong. Hungry. Hungry for what? Heat. Life. She said Dad went to check on a building out there. When he came home, he was different. Cold all the time. Couldn't get warm no matter what. He'd sit by the fire wrapped in blankets and still be shivering. Then one day he didn't come home. They found him in his truck, frozen solid. In July. Mom never got over it. She died 5 years ago, still saying Red Mesa took him. still saying we should burn that place to the ground. After I hung up, I sat in my truck thinking. Daniel Tso survived the initial encounter, got out of the building, but something stayed with him, followed him home, finished what it started. The voice in the warehouse said, "You opened the door again." It wasn't talking to me, it was talking to someone else. Someone who'd opened that door 57 years ago and barely escaped. But Daniel was dead, had been dead for decades. So who was the voice expecting? Unless I pulled out the thermal images Tara and I had taken, studied the heat sphere in the center of the room, then looked at the handprints along the wall. The handprints were hot. The sphere was hot. Everything else was cold. What if the hot spots weren't remnants of the victims? What if they were the victims? What if the people who died in those experiments weren't gone? What if they were trapped in the building, transformed into pure heat, pure energy, unable to leave or die? And what if Daniel Tso, when he escaped, carried a piece of that with him? What if it fed on him slowly, until he was gone? I called Tara. "I need you to check something for me." "What?" "Hospital records. Anyone who came into contact with the experiment victims. Medical staff, family members, anyone. I need to know if they had any unusual symptoms afterward." "Solomon, it's midnight." "I know. This is important." She sighed. "Give me an hour." 90 minutes later, she called back. "You were right. 3 nurses who treated the frozen victims reported symptoms afterward. Feeling cold constantly. Chills that wouldn't go away. One of them died 2 years later. Hypothermia. The other 2 moved away. No follow-up records. What about family members? 6 people visited the victims before they died. Of those 6, 4 died within 5 years. All hypothermia related. So it spreads like a disease, or like something looking for new hosts. I thought about the heat sphere, about the voice, about everything that had happened. "Tara, I think those people in the experiments aren't dead. I think they're trapped, transformed into something else, and I think they've been trying to get out for 60 years. By taking warmth from the living, not just taking it, replacing it. The more people who open that door, the more chances they have to attach themselves to someone new, to hitch a ride out. Then we need to make sure nobody else opens that door. It's not that simple. The chairman was right. We can seal it, but eventually someone will open it. Out of curiosity, or official business, or just bad luck. And when they do, the cycle starts again. So, what do you suggest?" I looked at the thermal images again, at those glowing handprints, at that sphere of heat hanging in frozen air. "I think we need to free them, the experiment victims. They're trapped in there, suffering, unable to move on. We need to break whatever's keeping them bound to that building. How? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out." Over the next week, I consulted with everyone I could think of. Medicine men, tribal elders, even a professor at the university who specialized in paranormal phenomena. Most of them thought I was crazy. A few listened and offered suggestions. The consensus was that if something was bound to a physical location, you had to either destroy the location or purify it. And since destroying a concrete building wasn't practical, purification was the only option. But how do you purify something that's been corrupted by government experiments and decades of death? I was running out of ideas when I got a call from Warren. "Solomon, you need to come to the station, now." "What's wrong?" "Just get here." I arrived to find Warren and Sergeant Hosteen in the conference room with a woman I didn't recognize. She was in her 70s, gray hair pulled back, weathered face. She looked scared. "This is Margaret Benally," Rita said. "Sarah Benally's mother. She has something to tell you." Margaret looked at me with watery eyes. My daughter didn't die in that building. Ma'am, the records show, the records are wrong. Sarah came home after they took her from the warehouse. She was in the hospital for 3 days, then she came home. But she wasn't right. She was cold, so cold, and she kept saying she had to go back, that they were calling her. Who was calling her? The others. The ones still in the building. She said they were trapped and she was the only one who could help them. I didn't understand. Thought she was delirious from fever. But every night, she'd wake up screaming, saying they needed her heat. They needed her warmth to break free. What happened? On the 3rd night, she disappeared. I woke up and she was gone. They found her the next morning at the warehouse. Door was open. She was inside, frozen, dead. Margaret wiped her eyes. But before she went, she told me something. She said the only way to free them was to give them what they needed. Enough heat to break the cold that bound them. Enough warmth to burn the building itself. Fire? Not regular fire. Heat. Pure heat. She said if you could generate enough heat inside that building, it would break whatever was holding them. But she wasn't strong enough to do it alone. None of them were. I looked at Tara. The heat sphere. What? Margaret asked. There's a heat signature in the center of the building, Tara explained. Hot enough to show on thermal imaging. It's suspended in midair. Margaret nodded slowly. That's her. That's my Sarah. She's still trying, still generating heat, still trying to free herself and the others. But it's not enough, I said. No, it's not. An idea was forming. Dangerous, possibly insane, but it might work. What if we added to it? I said. What if we brought more heat sources into the building? Chemical reactions, burning materials, anything that generates intense heat. If Sarah's been trying for 30 years and isn't strong enough alone, maybe with help? You'd have to seal yourself inside, Warren said. Make sure the heat built up instead of escaping. I know. Solomon, you could die in there. Or I could free 7 people who've been trapped for 60 years and prevent anyone else from being taken. Tara stood up. If you're doing this, I'm coming with you. You'll need medical support. No. Too dangerous. Not asking permission. Rita looked between us. If you're serious about this, you'll need authorization and supplies. Give me 24 hours. I wanted to argue, to say we didn't need official approval. But Rita was right. If we were going to do this properly, we needed resources and backup in case things went wrong. The next day, we assembled what we needed. Propane heaters, chemical heat packs, emergency flares, anything that could generate intense heat. Rita also assigned 2 officers to stay outside the warehouse, ready to break in if we didn't emerge after a set time. 2 hours, Rita said. If you're not out in 2 hours, they're coming in to get you. Understood. We drove out to Red Mesa at noon, when the sun was highest and the outside temperature was warmest. Every advantage we could get. The warehouse sat waiting, door sealed with the chain I'd put on a week ago. I cut through it for the last time and let it fall to the ground. Ready? I asked Tara. No, but let's do it anyway. We opened the door and stepped into the cold. The interior was even colder than before. The thermometer showed 15 degrees. Our breath came out in thick clouds. Ice coated the walls in a thin layer, but the heat sphere was still there, glowing orange-red on the thermal camera. Waiting. We set up the propane heaters first, 4 of them arranged in a square around the heat sphere. Turned them all to maximum. Then we activated the chemical heat packs, dozens of them, and spread them across the floor. The temperature started to rise, slowly. 20 degrees, 25, 30. The ice on the walls began to melt, water dripping to the floor. And that's when the breathing started. That same slow, deep breathing. But it was different now, faster, more urgent. "They know what we're doing," Tara said. "Keep going." We lit the emergency flares, bright red flames that burned hot and fast, threw them into the corners of the room. The temperature jumped to 40 degrees, 50. The heat sphere began to pulse, growing brighter on the thermal camera, expanding. Other spheres appeared, smaller ones, scattered around the room. 7 total, including the large one in the center. "Sarah wasn't alone," I said. "They're all still here, all 7 victims." The breathing became voices, multiple voices, overlapping, desperate. "More, need, more, heat. Too long, so cold. Please, burning, need, burning." Tara lit more flares. I cranked the heaters higher. The temperature hit 60 degrees, 70. The spheres were glowing brighter now, moving closer together, merging. And the cold was fighting back. Ice formed on the door, sealing it shut. The walls grew frost despite the rising heat. The concrete floor cracked as ice expanded in the hairline fractures. "Solomon, we're trapped. Keep generating heat. We're close. 80 degrees, 90. The heaters were at maximum. The flares were burning down. We had maybe 10 more minutes of heat generation before everything ran out." The merged sphere was huge now, taking up half the room. Bright white on the thermal camera. The heat coming from it was intense, like standing next to a blast furnace. And through that heat, I could see shapes, human shapes, transparent and flickering, standing in the light. 7 figures. 7 people who'd been trapped for 6 decades. One of them stepped forward. A woman. Her face was gaunt, her eyes hollow, but I recognized her from the photo in the file. Sarah Benally. She looked at me, spoke without moving her lips, her voice echoing in my head. "Thank you." Then she turned to the others. They joined hands, forming a circle around the sphere of heat. The temperature spiked, 100 degrees, 120, 150. The thermometer's scale couldn't go higher. The concrete floor began to glow red. The metal door warped. The walls cracked with loud snapping sounds. "We need to get out," Tara shouted. But the door was sealed shut with ice and warped metal. We were trapped in a room that was becoming an oven. The 7 figures raised their hands together. The sphere exploded outward in a wave of pure heat. I hit the floor, pulling Tara down with me. The heat wave passed over us, so intense I could feel my skin blistering. The propane heaters exploded. The flares went out instantly, vaporized. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. The heat vanished. The temperature plummeted. I could hear ice forming, the crackle and snap as water froze instantly. I looked up. The room was destroyed. The walls were cracked and crumbling. The floor was shattered. The door hung off its hinges, and the heat spheres were gone. No glow on the thermal camera, no shapes in the air, just cold, empty space. "Tara, you okay?" She groaned and sat up. "I think so. Burns, but not serious." We stumbled to our feet and headed for the door. It fell off completely when I touched it, hitting the ground with a metallic crash. Outside, the 2 backup officers ran toward us. "What happened in there? We heard explosions." "Later," I said. "Get us water and a medic." We sat on the ground while they tended to our burns. Minor, mostly. 1st and 2nd degree on exposed skin. Nothing permanent. I looked back at the warehouse. Smoke drifted from the open door. The walls were visibly damaged, concrete crumbling in places, But the building was quiet. No breathing, no voices, no impossible cold. Whatever had been trapped inside was gone. Rita arrived an hour later with the medical examiner and a structural engineer. "Building's condemned," the engineer said after a quick inspection. "Needs to be demolished. It's not safe." "Good," Rita said. "Tear it down, fill in the hole, pave it over if you have to. I want nothing left." The medical examiner went inside with protective gear and thermal equipment. Came out 15 minutes later looking pale. "It's gone," he said. "Whatever was generating those temperature anomalies, it's not there anymore. Building's ambient temperature. Nothing unusual at all." I spent 3 days writing reports. Left out the parts that sounded insane. Focused on structural instability and chemical contamination. Nobody questioned it. The building had been a problem for decades. Everyone was happy to see it go. 2 weeks later, I watched as they demolished the warehouse. Heavy equipment reduced it to rubble in a single afternoon. They hauled away the debris and filled the site with clean dirt. By evening, you couldn't tell a building had ever been there. I got a call that night from Margaret Benally. "Officer Yazzie, I wanted to thank you." "For what, ma'am?" "Last night I dreamed about Sarah. First time in 30 years. She was at peace, smiling. She said to tell you the cold is gone. They're warm now, they're free. I'm glad, ma'am. She also said to tell you something else. She said the building is gone, but the government's records aren't. There were other sites, other experiments, other victims still trapped." My blood went cold. "Other sites?" "That's what she said. I don't know details, but she wanted you to know, in case you wanted to help them too." After she hung up, I sat there thinking. Other sites, other experiments, other people trapped in impossible cold, waiting for someone to free them. I pulled up a map of the reservation, marked the location where the warehouse had been. Then I started researching, looking for other sealed buildings, other restricted files, other clusters of hypothermia deaths. Found 3 possibilities, all sealed in the 60s and 70s, all with restricted access and no maintenance records. I called Tara. "You busy?" "Depends. Why saw some?" "I found 3 more buildings. I think we need to check them out." She was quiet for a moment, then, "When do we start?" "Tomorrow." "Solomon, we almost died at the last one." "I know. But those people in there, they've been trapped for decades. Suffering. We can't just leave them." "You're right, we can't." She sighed. "Tomorrow, then. But we're bringing more supplies this time, and backup." "Deal." I hung up and looked at the map again. 3 sites. Maybe more after that. How many people had the government experimented on? How many were still trapped, still suffering, still waiting for someone to help them? I didn't have answers, but I was going to find out. The warehouse at Red Mesa was gone. 7 people were free. 7 voices were finally silent, but somewhere out in the desert, in other sealed buildings with other locked doors, more voices were waiting. And I was going to find them. Not because I was ordered to, not because it was my job, but because it was the right thing to do. Those handprints pressed into concrete. Those heat spheres hanging in frozen air. Those voices begging for warmth, for freedom, for an end to their suffering. They deserved better than to be sealed away and forgotten. They deserved peace, and I was going to give it to them, even if it killed me. The investigation continues. The files remain restricted. The truth stays buried, but not forever. Some doors need to be opened, some secrets need to be exposed, some wrongs need to be made right. And I'm not stopping until every single victim is free. Every single voice is silent. Every single building is torn down. The cold is gone from Red Mesa. But it's still out there, still waiting, still trapping people who were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I'm coming for it. All of it. This isn't over. It's just beginning. There's something about the desert at 3 in the morning that makes you question everything. The silence isn't peaceful. It's heavy. Like the world is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I'm Isaiah Coho. Been with Navajo Nation Tribal Police for 8 years now. I work the graveyard shift most weeks, midnight to 8. It's the shift nobody wants, which is exactly why I took it. Less politics, less supervisors breathing down your neck. Just you, the road, and whatever the night decides to throw at you. Most nights, that's nothing at all. But some nights you get calls that stick with you, the kind that don't make sense no matter how many times you run them through your head. The kind that make you check your rear-view mirror more than you should. This started on a Tuesday in late February. Cold as hell. Temperature was hovering around 18 degrees when I clocked in. The sky was clear, stars everywhere. No moon that night. Just darkness and those stars that seemed too bright, like they were closer than they should be. Dispatch was quiet for the first few hours. I drove my usual route, north from Chinle, up toward the Utah border, then back down through Tsileh. Empty roads. Nobody out at that hour, except for the occasional truck driver hauling goods to Farmington or Gallup. Around 3:15 in the morning, my radio crackled to life. Unit 12, dispatch. I reached for the handset. Unit 12, go ahead. We have a wellness check request. Caller reports no contact with a family member at 4782 County Road 9. Requesting unit response. I knew that area. It was remote, even by reservation standards. A cluster of hogans and small houses scattered across the high desert plateau. Families lived miles apart out there. Most of them, older folks who preferred the traditional ways. Copy, dispatch. En route to County Road 9, ETA 20 minutes. 10-4, Unit 12. Caller stated the residence is the third structure past the cattle guard. Blue door. Copy that. I flipped on my headlights and turned the cruiser around. County Road 9 was a dirt road, barely maintained. During monsoon season it turned into a mud trap. In winter, it was frozen ruts and washboard that rattled your teeth loose. The drive out there was uneventful. I passed one pickup truck heading the opposite direction. Driver waved. I waved back. That's how it is out here. Everyone knows everyone, or at least knows someone who knows someone. I turned onto County Road 9 and slowed down. The cattle guard came up fast, metal bars rattling under my tires. Beyond it, the road narrowed. Sage brush pressed in on both sides. My headlights caught the reflection of animal eyes once or twice. Coyotes, probably. They're everywhere out here. I counted the structures as I passed. First was a traditional hogan, dark and quiet. Second was a small house with a propane tank out front. Also dark. The third structure came into view. A small, rectangular house with a blue door, just like dispatch said. I pulled up slowly, keeping my headlights on the front of the house. No lights on inside. No vehicle parked outside. The place looked deserted. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out. The cold hit me immediately. My breath came out in thick clouds. I could hear my boots crunching on the frozen ground, but nothing else. No wind, no animals, nothing. "Navajo Police," I called out. "Wellness check?" No response. I walked up to the blue door and knocked. 3 solid knocks. "Navajo Police, I need someone to come to the door." Still nothing. I tried the handle. Locked. I walked around the side of the house, shining my flashlight through windows. The place was sparse inside. A small kitchen table, a wood stove, a couch. Everything looked neat and untouched. No signs of disturbance. I completed a circle around the house and came back to my cruiser, keyed the radio. Dispatch, Unit 12. Go ahead, Unit 12. I'm at the location on County Road 9. No signs of occupancy. Structure appears secure. No vehicle present. No response to announcement. There was a pause. Then the dispatcher came back on, and her voice sounded different, uncertain. Unit 12, stand by. I'm checking the call log. I waited, engine running, heater blasting. I watched the house. Something felt off, but I couldn't put my finger on what. The place just felt empty. Not abandoned, but empty. Like nobody had been there in days. The radio crackled again. Unit 12, dispatch. Go ahead. I'm showing no record of a wellness check request for that location tonight. Can you confirm the address? I felt a cold sensation that had nothing to do with the temperature. Dispatch, you sent me here. County Road 9, third structure past the cattle guard, blue door. You gave me that information approximately 20 minutes ago. Another pause. Longer this time. Unit 12, I have no record of that transmission. I show no calls dispatched to your unit since 20:45 hours. I stared at the radio. Dispatch, I copied your traffic at 0315. Wellness check request, no contact with family member. Unit 12, I didn't make that transmission. I've been the only dispatcher on duty since midnight, and I haven't sent any units to County Road 9. The silence stretched out between us. I looked at the dark house with the blue door. My headlights made harsh shadows across its front. Copy, dispatch, I finally said. Returning to patrol. 10-4, Unit 12. I put the cruiser in reverse and backed away from the house. As I turned around, my headlights swept across the front yard. For just a second, I thought I saw something. Movement near the corner of the house. But when I aimed the spotlight there, nothing. Just empty desert and scrub brush. I drove back to the main road, my mind trying to make sense of what just happened. Maybe I'd been half asleep. Maybe I'd dreamed the dispatch call. But no, I'd written down the address. I could see my own handwriting on the notepad clipped to my dashboard. 4782 County Road 9. I didn't tell anyone about it when I got back to the station at shift change. Didn't seem worth the hassle. Chalked it up to a weird night and went home. But 3 nights later, it happened again. Same time. 3:15 a.m. I was on patrol near Siley when my radio crackled. Unit 12, dispatch. I picked up the handset, but before I could respond, I heard it. We have a wellness check request. Caller reports no contact with a family member at 4782 County Road 9, requesting unit response. The exact same words, same cadence, same everything. My hand tightened on the handset. Dispatch, is this a repeat call? Static. Then a different voice came through. The night dispatcher I actually knew. Unit 12, say again. Dispatch, did you just send me to County Road 9? Negative, Unit 12. I haven't sent any traffic to you tonight. Everything okay? I sat there in my cruiser, pulled over on the side of the road, staring at the radio like it might start talking on its own. Yeah, I said. Everything's fine. Unit 12 clear. Copy. I sat there for another 10 minutes, just listening to the silence. Then I turned the cruiser around and drove toward County Road 9. I had to know. The drive felt longer this time. Every shadow seemed darker. Every turn in the road felt wrong. When I reached the cattle guard, I slowed to a crawl. The house with the blue door came into view. Dark, just like before. No lights, no vehicle, no signs of life. But this time, something was different. There were tracks in the dirt. Fresh tracks. Boot prints leading from where I'd parked 3 nights ago. up to the front door, around the side of the house and back. My tracks, from 3 nights ago, but they looked fresh, like they'd been made minutes ago, not days. I grabbed my flashlight and got out. The cold was worse tonight, sharp enough to make my eyes water. I walked up to the boot prints and knelt down. The dirt was frozen solid. These prints shouldn't look this fresh. They should be wind-blown, faded, but they weren't. They looked like I'd just made them. I stood up slowly and looked at the house. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to leave. But I'm a cop. I don't leave just because something feels wrong. I walked up to the blue door again, knocked. Navajo Police, wellness check. The sound of my knocking seemed to die in the air. No echo, no resonance, just dead sound. I tried the handle, still locked. I walked around the side of the house, following my own footprints from 3 nights ago. They led me to a window. I shined my flashlight inside. The house looked exactly the same. Small kitchen table, wood stove, couch. But this time I noticed something I'd missed before. There was a calendar on the wall, an old one. I couldn't make out the year from outside, but I could see that several dates were circled in red, and every single one of them was the 15th of the month. Today was February 15th. I completed my circle around the house and came back to my cruiser. My hands were shaking and it wasn't from the cold. I keyed the radio. Dispatch, Unit 12. Go ahead, Unit 12. I'm out at County Road 9, checking on a residence. Can you run the address for me? 4782 County Road 9. I need ownership information. Stand by, Unit 12. I waited, watching the house. The silence pressed in on me. No wind, no animals, nothing. Just that oppressive quiet that makes you want to scream just to prove you can still make noise. Unit 12, dispatch. Go ahead. That address comes back to a Martha Nez. Date of birth, July 12, 1945. No active warrants, no recent police contact. Last known contact was... A pause. December 15th, 2022, 2 months ago. Copy, dispatch. I'm going to attempt contact. 10-4, Unit 12. Do you need backup? I looked at the dark house. Negative, I'll advise. I got out again and walked up to the door. This time I knocked harder. Miss Nez, this is Navajo Police. I need you to come to the door if you're in there. Nothing. I tried the handle again. Still locked. I walked around back and tried the rear door. Also locked. Every window was secure. The place was tight as a drum, but as I stood there at the back door, I heard something. Faint. So faint, I almost missed it. Radio static. It was coming from inside the house. I pressed my ear against the door and listened. Yes, definitely radio static. The same sound my police radio makes when it's searching for a signal. Intermittent bursts of white noise. Then, through the static, I heard a voice. Wellness check request. County Road 9, no contact. It was the same transmission I'd heard twice now, playing inside the empty house. I stepped back from the door. My heart was pounding. I reached for my own radio, but I didn't key it. I just listened. 3:15 a.m. Right on schedule, my radio crackled. Unit 12, dispatch. But this time, I could hear it twice. Once from my radio and once from inside the house. A split-second delay between them, like an echo. We have a wellness check request. Caller reports no contact with a family member at 4782 County Road 9, requesting unit response. I didn't respond. I just stood there, listening to the transmission play out in stereo, from my radio and from whatever was inside that house. Then the static stopped. Both radios went silent at the exact same time. The cold seemed to intensify. My breath came out in thick clouds. And in the silence that followed, I heard something else. Footsteps. Inside the house. Slow, deliberate footsteps walking from one room to another. They stopped near where I was standing, just on the other side of the door. I could hear breathing, raspy and wet, like someone with fluid in their lungs. "Miss Nez?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The breathing stopped. Then the door handle started to turn. I stepped back fast. My hand went to my sidearm. The door handle turned slowly, metal scraping against metal. Then it stopped. The door didn't open. It was still locked from the inside, but the handle had definitely turned. "Miss Nez, I'm Officer Coho with Tribal Police. I need you to open the door." No response. The breathing had stopped. The house was silent again. I waited another 30 seconds, then walked back to my cruiser. My hands were still shaking. I sat in the driver's seat and stared at the house, trying to process what I'd just heard. Footsteps, breathing. The door handle turning, but nobody answering. I reached for the radio, then hesitated. What was I going to say? That I heard ghosts in an empty house? That a dispatch call kept repeating itself even though dispatch had no record of it? Instead, I started the engine and left. I drove back to the main road and continued my patrol, but I couldn't stop thinking about that house. About the calendar with the circled dates. About Martha Nez, last contacted on December 15th. When my shift ended at 8 a.m., I went straight to records. I pulled up everything we had on Martha Nez. There wasn't much. She was 77 years old, lived alone, had 3 adult children who all lived off the reservation. She'd called police twice in the past 5 years. Once for a coyote that wouldn't leave her property. Once to report her mailbox vandalized. Both calls had been in December, both on the 15th. I dug deeper, found her medical records in our system. She had chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, required oxygen therapy. The last note in her file was from a community health nurse who'd done a home visit in November. The nurse's name was Mara Holton. I knew Mara. She worked out of the Chinley Clinic. I called her around 9 a.m. just as the clinic was opening. "Mara, it's Isaiah Coho. I need to ask you about a patient." "I can't really discuss patients, Isaiah. You know that." "I'm not asking for details. I just need to know when you last saw Martha Nez, out on County Road 9. There was a pause. "Martha? God, I haven't seen her since November. Why? Did you do a wellness check on her?" "Yeah, I did. She missed 2 appointments, so I drove out there. She was fine. Grumpy about me showing up unannounced, but fine. Why are you asking about Martha? Has anyone checked on her since then?" "Not that I know of. Her daughter's supposed to come up from Phoenix every few weeks, but I don't track that. Isaiah, what's going on?" I rubbed my face. I'd been awake for 24 hours straight and my head was starting to hurt. "I'm not sure. I got a call to check on her place. Nobody answered." "When was this?" "Last night, and a few nights before that." "Well, maybe she's staying with one of her kids. She does that sometimes during the cold months." "Maybe. Thanks, Mara. Isaiah? If you're worried about her, go back out there during the day. Take someone with you. Don't go alone." "Why would you say that?" Another pause. Longer this time. Just a feeling. That place always creeped me out. Too quiet, too isolated. Just be careful. She hung up. I sat there in the records room, staring at Martha Nez's photo on the computer screen. An old woman with deep lines in her face and wise eyes. She looked tired. I should have gone home, should have gotten some sleep. But something kept nagging at me. December 15th. That was 2 months ago. And if no one had checked on her since then, I called Reyes Akeche. He was a canine handler with the department. Good guy, good cop. More importantly, he and his dog Sarge were trained for search and rescue. Reyes, you working today? Just got in. Why? I need a favor. I need you and Sarge to come with me on a wellness check. When? Now. It's been bothering me for 3 days. I need to make sure I'm not crazy. Where are we going? County Road 9. I'll buy breakfast after. He laughed. You must really need this. County Road 9 is a hellhole. Okay, give me 20 minutes. I met him in the parking lot. Sarge was a Belgian Malinois, 3 years old, all muscle and focus. Reyes loaded him into his cruiser and we drove in convoy out to County Road 9. The drive felt different in daylight, less oppressive. The desert spread out in shades of red and tan, punctuated by dark green sage and juniper. The sky was blue and clear. Temperature had climbed to 40 degrees. We crossed the cattle guard and headed toward the house with the blue door. In daylight, it looked even more isolated. No other structures visible in any direction, just open desert and distant mesas. We pulled up and got out. Sarge immediately started sniffing around, tail up, nose working. So, what's the story? Reyes asked. I told him everything. The repeated dispatch calls, the boot prints that looked fresh, the radio static and the footsteps. He listened without interrupting, his expression neutral. When I finished, he looked at the house. And dispatch has no record of the calls? None. But you wrote down the address. Yeah, here. I showed him my notepad. 4782 County Road 9, my handwriting. He studied it for a moment. Okay, let's see what Sarge thinks. We walked up to the house. I tried knocking again. Navajo Police. Wellness check. No answer. Reyes gave Sarge a command in Navajo. The dog moved to the door and sniffed. His tail drooped. He whined, a high-pitched sound that made the hair on my neck stand up. He smells something, Reyes said. Something dead? Not sure. Sarge, search. The dog moved around the house, nose low. He stopped at each window, sniffing. When he got to the back door, he sat down and looked at Reyes. That's his alert. He'd found what he was looking for. We're going in, Reyes said. It's locked. All of them? We checked every window, every door. Everything was locked tight. We need probable cause to force entry, I said. Reyes looked at Sarge, then at me. Your wellness check calls are probable cause. If dispatch sent you here 3 times, something's wrong, and Sarge just alerted. That's 2 strikes. We're going in. I radioed dispatch, told them we were making forced entry for a wellness check. They logged it and told us to proceed with caution. Reyes went back to his cruiser and grabbed a Halligan tool. Between the 2 of us, we pried open the back door in about 30 seconds. The lock splintered and the door swung inward. The smell hit us immediately. Not death. Not exactly. But something close. Something organic and wrong. Jesus, Reyes muttered. Sarge refused to go inside. He sat outside the door, whining. We stepped in carefully. The house was cold. Colder than outside. Our breath came out in clouds. The place was exactly as I'd seen it through the windows. Small kitchen table, wood stove, couch. But there were details I'd missed. A thin layer of dust covered everything. Dishes in the sink, dried and crusty. A blanket on the couch, folded neatly. And on the kitchen table, a radio. An old transistor radio, the kind you don't see anymore. It was turned on. The dial glowed faintly, but no sound came from it. Just silence. That's weird, Reyes said. We moved deeper into the house, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, the main living area. Everything was neat and orderly, no signs of struggle or disturbance. but in the bedroom I found it. Martha Nez was in her bed. She'd been dead for a long time. Weeks, maybe longer. The cold had preserved her somewhat, but there was no mistaking it. She was gone. She was lying on her side, facing the window. One hand was stretched out towards the nightstand. On the nightstand was a phone, an old landline phone, off the hook. "Reyes," I called. He came in and stopped in the doorway. Ah, hell. We backed out and called it in. Dispatch sent the medical examiner and a detective. Within an hour, the house was full of people. Photos were taken, measurements recorded, the body removed. The medical examiner's preliminary finding was death by natural causes. Likely a heart attack or respiratory failure related to her COPD. He estimated she'd been dead since mid-December. December 15th. While the detective interviewed us, I kept looking at that radio on the kitchen table. It was still glowing, still silent. "You said you heard a radio inside the house?" the detective asked. "Yeah, 2 nights ago. Radio static and a voice." "What kind of voice?" "A dispatch call, the same one I kept hearing on my police radio." The detective frowned. "And that radio was on?" "I don't know, I couldn't see inside, but I heard it." He walked over to the kitchen table and examined the radio, turned it off. The glow disappeared. Then he turned it back on. Nothing happened. "Battery's dead," he said. "This thing probably hasn't worked in years." But I'd heard it. I knew I had. We cleared out around noon. The house was sealed as a death scene pending the official autopsy. I drove back to the station with Reyes following. In the parking lot, he got out with Sarge. The dog seemed happy to be away from that place. He was jumping around, tail wagging. "That was rough," Reyes said. "Poor woman, dying alone like that." "Yeah. You okay?" I nodded, but I wasn't. Something still felt wrong. "The phone was off the hook," I said, "in the bedroom." "So?" "So maybe she was trying to call someone before she died. Maybe she was trying to call for help." Reyes looked at me. "Isaiah, if she called 911, it would have been logged. There's no record." "I know. But what if she did call? What if somehow the call got stuck, like a loop?" "That's not how phones work." "I know. But think about it. 3 nights in a row, same time, same message. A wellness check call. What if that was her? What if some part of her was still trying to reach out?" Reyes didn't say anything. He just looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "Forget it," I said. "Long night, I need sleep." "Yeah. Get some rest, Isaiah. This job messes with your head sometimes." He loaded Sarge and drove off. I sat in my cruiser for a while, staring at nothing. That night, I called Martha Nez's daughter in Phoenix, told her we'd found her mother. She cried, said she'd been meaning to drive up and check on her, but work had been busy. She'd meant to call, she'd meant to visit, but she hadn't. "She called me," the daughter said through tears. "Back in December. December 15th, she left a message. Said she wasn't feeling well, asked me to come up. But I was getting ready for a work trip and I told myself I'd call her back after, but I forgot. I just forgot." December 15th. The day Martha died. The day she'd tried to reach out and no one answered. I told the daughter I was sorry for her loss. She thanked me for finding her mother. We hung up. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about Martha Nez lying in her bed, phone in hand, waiting for someone to answer. I kept thinking about that radio with the dead battery, somehow still working. I kept thinking about the dispatch call that didn't exist. And I kept wondering if sometimes, when someone dies alone, trying to call for help, maybe part of that call lingers. Maybe it keeps broadcasting, over and over, hoping someone will finally hear. 3 nights, 3 calls, 3:15 a.m. Maybe it had nothing to do with me. Maybe it had everything to do with her. Maybe she just needed someone to find her. I took 3 days off after we found Martha Nez. Told my supervisor I needed time. He didn't ask questions. Finding a body isn't easy, especially when it's someone who died alone and scared. But that wasn't what kept me up at night. It was the timing, the repeated calls, the exact same words every time, and the fact that dispatch had no record of any of it. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I'd been half asleep. Maybe stress and exhaustion had made me imagine things, but I had written down that address before I ever drove out there the first time. My handwriting, my notepad, my notes. On the 4th day, I went back to work. Night shift again, midnight to 8. I told myself everything would be normal. Just patrol, keep the roads safe, respond to calls. Routine. But at 3:14 a.m., I found myself driving toward County Road 9. I didn't plan it. I was on patrol near Sile and my hands just turned the wheel. Before I knew it, I was crossing the cattle guard, heading toward that house with the blue door. It looked different now. Crime scene tape across the door, fluttering in a breeze that didn't exist. The windows were dark. The whole place felt abandoned in a way it hadn't before. I parked where I'd parked the first time, turned off my engine, sat in the dark. 3:15 a.m. My radio crackled. I grabbed it before the voice could even start. "This is Unit 12. If anyone's on this frequency, identify yourself." Static. Long, empty static. Then faint, almost buried in the white noise, a woman's voice. "Help. Can't breathe. Please." My hand tightened on the radio. "Say again, who is this?" More static. The voice came again, clearer this time. "County Road 9, need help. Please send someone." It was Martha Nez. I knew it was. The cadence, the breathlessness. She was calling for help. Still calling even now. "Martha," I said into the radio. "Martha, we found you. We came. You're not alone anymore." The static intensified. It got louder and louder until it was almost painful. Then it cut out completely. Silence. My radio was dead. No static, no sound, nothing. I checked it. Power was on. But it wasn't transmitting or receiving anything. I looked at the house. The crime scene tape had stopped moving. The air was perfectly still. Then I saw it. A light in the window, faint, flickering, like candlelight. I grabbed my flashlight and got out. Every instinct told me to leave, to drive away and never come back. But I couldn't. I had to know. I walked up to the window and looked inside. The house was empty, just like it had been when we'd cleared it. But on the kitchen table, that old radio was glowing again. The dial was lit, and from somewhere inside I could hear static. I went to the front door. The crime scene tape was intact. I ducked under it and tried the handle, locked, just like before. But as I stood there, I heard the footsteps again. Inside the house, slow and deliberate, walking from the bedroom toward the front door. They stopped right on the other side. I could hear breathing. That same raspy, wet breathing I'd heard before. "Martha?" I said. The breathing continued, steady, struggling. "Martha, I'm sorry we didn't get here sooner. I'm sorry no one answered your call." The breathing changed. It became more labored, more desperate, like someone drowning. "You're not alone," I said. "Your daughter knows. She knows you called. She's sorry she didn't answer. She's sorry she didn't come." For a moment, nothing. Then the breathing slowed, eased, became softer. The door handle turned. This time, the door opened. Just a crack. Maybe an inch. But it opened. Cold air poured out. Not cold like winter. Cold like a freezer. Cold like death. I stepped back. Through the gap in the door, I could see darkness. Just pure darkness. And in that darkness, something moved. A shape. Human-sized, human-shaped. But not quite right. The proportions were off. The movements were wrong. It stood in the doorway just beyond the opening, watching me. "Martha?" I whispered. The shape moved closer. I could see details now. A hunched figure. Thin. Fragile. One arm extended, reaching for the phone that wasn't there anymore. I realized what I was seeing. This was her. Not her ghost, not her spirit, her last moment, her final act. Frozen in time, repeating endlessly, reaching for help that never came. "I'm sorry," I said again. The shape stopped moving. The reaching arm lowered. Then, from inside the house, I heard a voice, faint but clear. "Thank you." The door closed, gently, like someone had pulled it shut from inside. The light in the window went out. The static from the radio stopped. The house was dark and silent. I stood there for a long time, staring at that blue door. Finally, I turned and walked back to my cruiser. My radio crackled to life. Unit 12, dispatch. It was the regular night dispatcher, normal voice, normal tone. "Go ahead, dispatch. Just checking your location. You've been 10 to 7 for a while. I'm out at County Road 9. Following up on the deceased we found a few days ago." "Copy, Unit 12. Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Everything's okay. 10-4. Dispatch clear." I started my engine and drove away. In my rearview mirror, I watched the house disappear into the darkness. The rest of my shift was quiet. No unusual calls, no strange radio transmissions. Everything was normal. But at 7 a.m., just before my shift ended, I got a call from the medical examiner. He'd completed the autopsy on Martha Nez. "Thought you'd want to know," he said. Time of death was December 15th between 3 and 3:30 a.m. Respiratory failure. She likely tried to call for help but couldn't complete the call. Phone records show an incomplete 911 dial at 3:15 a.m. The call never connected. 3:15 a.m., the exact time the dispatch calls had come through. "Thanks for letting me know," I said. "No problem. One more thing. When we processed the house, we checked that old radio on the kitchen table. You know, the one you mentioned hearing? Yeah. It doesn't work. Battery terminals are corroded. Thing probably hasn't functioned in a decade. But when we bagged it as evidence, it turned on, just for a second. Played one burst of static, then died again." "What time was that?" 3:15. "Why?" "No reason." "Thanks, Doc." I hung up and sat in my cruiser in the parking lot. The sun was coming up, painting the eastern sky in shades of orange and red. Martha Nez had died alone, trying to call for help. The call never connected. But somehow, someway, it kept trying. For 2 months, it kept trying. Until someone finally answered. I never got another call to County Road 9. My radio stayed normal. No strange transmissions, no repeated dispatches. But sometimes, on quiet nights when I'm alone on patrol, I think about Martha. About her lying there in the dark, reaching for a phone, desperate for someone to hear her. And I think about how death isn't always instant. Sometimes it's drawn out. Sometimes you have time to make a call, to reach out, to hope someone will answer. And sometimes, even after you're gone, that call keeps going. Keeps trying, keeps hoping, until finally, someone does. 6 weeks went by. Life returned to normal. I worked my shifts, drove my routes, responded to actual calls from actual dispatch. Everything was routine. But I couldn't shake the memory of that house, of the radio with the dead battery, of the reaching figure in the darkness. Other officers started noticing. Warren Salagi pulled me aside one night in the parking lot. "You doing okay, Isaiah?" "Yeah, why?" "You've been driving past County Road 9 every night, sometimes twice. Dispatch mentioned it." I didn't realize I'd been doing it that often, but he was right. Every patrol, I found myself taking that route, slowing down as I passed the turnoff, looking out across the dark desert toward that house. "Just keeping an eye on things," I said. Warren studied me for a moment. He'd been on the force long enough to recognize when someone was carrying something heavy. "That Nez woman got to you, didn't she?" "Found her too late." "You found her, that's what matters. Her family got closure. She didn't just disappear." "She was calling for help, Warren, for weeks, and nobody heard. Nobody could hear. The call never connected. That's not on you." But it felt like it was. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her reaching for that phone. Heard that raspy breathing. Felt that cold air pouring out of the house. In late March, I found myself back on County Road 9. Not because I wanted to be there, because dispatch sent me there. A real call this time, logged and recorded. A rancher had reported lights at the Nez property. He was worried about squatters or kids breaking in. "Unit 12, copy," I said. "En route to County Road 9. 10-4, Unit 12. Caller states he saw lights in the windows around 0300 hours. Caller is Harold Benally, standing by at the location. 3 a.m. I felt a cold sensation in my gut, but I pushed it down. Probably just reflections. Moonlight on glass. Something rational. I made the drive in silence. This time, I had Reyes with me. He'd volunteered to ride along. Said he wanted to check on the property, too. Make sure it was secure. As we approached the cattle guard, I saw a pickup truck parked on the shoulder. An old man in a canvas jacket stood next to it, smoking a cigarette. Harold Benally. I'd met him a few times over the years. Quiet guy, kept to himself. We pulled up and got out. Harold dropped his cigarette and ground it out with his boot. "Officers," he said. "Mr. Benally, you called about lights?" "Yeah, third time this month I've seen them. Always around 3 in the morning. I get up to check my stock, and I look over this way and there's lights in them windows." "What kind of lights?" "Flickering, like candles maybe. Or a lantern, but the place is supposed to be empty. The Nez family hasn't been back since you found Martha." Reyes and I exchanged a look. "You drive over to check?" I asked. "First time, yeah. Got right up to the house, but by the time I parked, the lights were gone. Thought maybe I was seeing things. But then I seen them again 2 nights later. Then again tonight. Always at 3 a.m., give or take. I keep weird hours, insomnia, so I'm usually up." I looked toward the house. From here, it was just a dark shape against the darker desert. "All right, Mr. Benally, we'll check it out. You can head home. You want me to wait, in case there's someone in there? We'll handle it. Thanks for calling." He nodded and got back in his truck. We watched him drive away, taillights disappearing into the darkness. 3 a.m., Reyes said. "Same time as those dispatch calls." "I know. You think it's connected?" "I don't know what to think anymore." We crossed the cattle guard and drove toward the house. The crime scene tape was gone now. The family had claimed Martha's belongings and sealed the place up. They were planning to sell it eventually. We pulled up and killed our engines. The house sat there in the moonlight, silent and still. Just a small building on a vast plain. Nothing sinister about it in the pale light, but I could feel it. That same heaviness I'd felt before. Like the air was thicker here, like the silence was too complete. "See any lights?" Reyes asked. "No. You?" "Nothing. Want to check it out?" We got out and approached the house with our flashlights. Our boots crunched on the frozen ground. The temperature had dropped. My breath came out in thick clouds. Everything looked secure. Windows intact, doors locked. No signs of entry or disturbance. "Check the back," I said. We split up. Reyes went around the right side of the house. I went left. As I rounded the corner, my flashlight caught something on the ground. Footprints. Fresh ones. Leading from the back door toward the open desert. "Reyes," I called. He came around the other side. I pointed at the tracks. "Someone's been here." We followed them. They led about 30 yards from the house, then stopped. Just stopped. Like whoever made them had vanished into thin air. "That's weird," Reyes said. We walked back to the house. The back door was still locked. The footprints definitely came from the door, but there was no sign of forced entry. "Could be old tracks," Reyes suggested, "from when we were here before. In this wind, they'd be gone in a day. So, what are you saying?" I didn't answer. I was staring at the back door, at the handle. Because, I swear, just for a second, I saw it turn. "Did you see that?" Reyes looked at the door. "See what?" "The handle. It moved. Wind, maybe. There's no wind." We stood there watching the door. Nothing moved. The desert was perfectly still. Then, from inside the house, we heard it. Faint, but unmistakable. Static. Radio static. Reyes heard it too. His hand went to his sidearm. "Someone's in there. Or something. Isaiah, don't start with that. There's a rational explanation." "Like what? A radio with a dead battery turning itself on? Squatters. Kids. Someone messing around. At 3 in the morning, in the middle of nowhere?" The static got louder. Then a voice came through, garbled and broken. "Help! Can't. Please." It was Martha's voice. I knew it was. The same voice I'd heard 6 weeks ago. "Jesus," Reyes whispered. "You hear it?" "Yeah, I hear it." We approached the back door. The static was definitely coming from inside, along with something else, breathing. That same raspy, wet breathing. "Navajo Police," I called out. "If someone's in there, come out now." The breathing stopped. The static continued. Reyes tried the door, still locked. He looked at me. "We going in?" "No, we're not." "What?" "This isn't a break-in, Reyes. This is something else." "You think it's her? You think Martha Nez is haunting this place?" "I think she's still here. Some part of her. The part that was trying to call for help." "That's insane." "Is it? You heard the voice. You heard the breathing. You saw the footprints that lead nowhere." Reyes stared at the door. His hand was still on his weapon. "So, what do we do?" "We wait. For what?" "For 3:15. We stood there in the cold, watching the house. The static rose and fell like a tide. Sometimes the voice came through clearly. Sometimes it was just noise. At exactly 3:15, everything stopped. The static cut out. The breathing ceased. The house went completely silent, and the back door opened. Just a crack. Maybe an inch. Cold air poured out, the same freezing cold I'd felt before. Reyes took a step back. "Isaiah, we should go." "Wait." Through the crack in the door, I could see darkness. But not empty darkness. There was something in there, a shape, a presence. "Martha?" I said. The door opened wider. Still no lights inside. just that deep, consuming darkness. And then I saw her, just for a moment, a thin figure standing in the doorway, one arm extended, reaching. But this time, she wasn't reaching for a phone, she was reaching for me. "She wants you to go in," Reyes said, his voice shaking. "No, she wants me to understand." "Understand what?" I stepped closer to the door. The cold intensified, my breath crystallized in the air. That she's not angry. She's not vengeful, she's just lonely. She spent her last moments alone, reaching out, hoping someone would hear. And now she can't stop. She's stuck in that moment, repeating it over and over. The figure in the doorway moved closer. I could see more details now. Her face, gaunt and hollow, her eyes dark and empty, her mouth open in a silent scream. "Martha, your daughter knows. She knows you called. She knows you needed her. And she's sorry, she's so sorry she didn't answer." The figure stopped moving. The reaching arm lowered slightly. "You don't have to keep calling anymore. Someone heard, someone came. You're not alone." For a long moment, nothing happened. We just stood there in the cold, staring at that open door and the figure beyond it. Then, slowly, the figure stepped back into the darkness, back into the house. The door closed, gently, with a soft click. The cold dissipated, the air warmed, the oppressive silence lifted. Reyes let out a breath I didn't realize he'd been holding. "What the hell was that?" "Closure," I said. We walked back to our cruisers. Neither of us spoke. What was there to say? "False alarm," Reyes said. "Probably just saw something that wasn't there." But we both knew that wasn't true. As we walked back to our cruisers, I looked at the house one more time. And in the window, just for a second, I saw it. A faint glow, like the dial of an old radio. Then it was gone. "Did you see that?" I asked. Reyes looked where I was pointing. "See what?" "Never mind, let's clear out." We got in our vehicles and drove away. But in my rearview mirror, I swear I saw that glow again, faint and flickering. Like it was trying to reach out, like it was still trying. Back at the station, Reyes went straight to the break room. I could hear him making coffee, his hands probably shaking as much as mine were. I sat at my desk and stared at my computer screen, trying to figure out what to write in my report. What could I write? That we'd heard a dead woman's voice? That we'd seen her ghost in the doorway? That the house on County Road 9 was haunted? I settled for responded to report of lights at vacant property, no signs of forced entry or occupancy, no violations observed. It was technically true, just not the whole truth. Reyes came over with 2 cups of coffee, set one on my desk. "I didn't imagine that, did I?" he asked quietly. "No, you didn't. So what do? File a report about ghosts?" "We file exactly what I just wrote. Lights reported, nothing found. End of story." "But it's not the end, is it? She's still there, still calling." I took a sip of coffee. It was terrible, but it was hot. Maybe. Or maybe tonight was the end. Maybe she just needed one more person to hear her, to acknowledge her. "You really believe that?" "I don't know what I believe anymore, Reyes. All I know is that Martha Nez died alone and scared, and nobody answered when she called for help. Maybe that kind of thing leaves a mark. Maybe it takes time to fade." He sat down at the desk across from mine. "I've been doing this job for 11 years. I've seen some strange stuff, but nothing like tonight. You ever hear stories? From the old-timers? About places that hold on to things? My grandfather used to tell stories About Shindy, about how when someone dies, especially if they die badly, part of them can linger. He said it's why we have cleansing ceremonies, to help them move on. Maybe that's what she needs, a ceremony. Maybe. We sat in silence for a while, drinking our bad coffee. The station was quiet, just the hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional crackle of the radio. Finally, Rhea stood up. I'm heading home. Try to get some sleep before the sun comes up. Yeah, good idea. Isaiah, don't go back there alone. Whatever's happening at that house, it's not something you want to face by yourself. I won't, but I knew I was lying, even as I said it. When my shift ended at 8 a.m., I didn't go home. I pulled Martha's daughter's phone number from my notes and called her. She answered on the third ring. Hello? Miss Nez, this is Officer Coho. I'm sorry to call so early. Is everything okay? Yeah, everything's fine. I just wanted to ask you something about your mother's house. Are you planning to sell it? Eventually, why? I know this is going to sound strange, but has anyone else been out there? Anyone reporting anything unusual? Like what? Lights, sounds, anything. She was quiet for a moment. The rancher next door called me last week. Said he saw lights in the windows, but when he drove over to check, nobody was there. He called again 3 days ago. Same thing. Then he called last night, which is why I assume you're asking. Did you go out there? Yeah, last night. We checked the property, everything's secure. But you saw something, didn't you? That's why you're calling. I hesitated. How do you tell someone their dead mother might be haunting her old house? Miss Nez, I need to ask you something. Did your mother believe in spirits and things that stay behind after death? She was traditional. She believed in a lot of things that modern people don't. Why? Because I think she's still there. Some part of her, the part that was trying to call for help when she died. I expected her to laugh, or to get angry, or to tell me I was crazy. Instead, she was quiet for a long time. Officer Coho, can I tell you something? Something I haven't told anyone? Of course. The night my mother died, December 15th, I had a dream. I was standing in her house in the dark, and I could hear her calling my name. She was in the bedroom, and she needed me, but I couldn't move. I was frozen. I could hear her getting weaker and weaker, her voice fading. And I just stood there. I couldn't move. I couldn't help her. Her voice broke. I could hear her crying softly. When I woke up, I checked my phone. She'd called me that day, left a message. But I'd been so busy with work I hadn't listened to it. By the time I called back the next morning, she didn't answer. I thought she was mad at me, but she wasn't mad. She was dead. I'm sorry. I listened to her voicemail. Do you know what she said? She said she wasn't feeling well, that her chest hurt, that she was scared, and she asked me to call her back, just to call her back. That's all she wanted, and I didn't do it. You couldn't have known. But I should have felt it. Mothers and daughters are supposed to have that connection. She needed me, and I was too busy to answer my phone. I didn't know what to say to that. Sometimes there are no right words. Miss Nez, I think your mother understood that you were busy. I think she knew you would have come if you'd known. But I also think she's been trying to reach you for weeks, maybe longer. Through you? Through anyone who would listen. The dispatch calls I kept getting, the lights the rancher saw, the radio that shouldn't work but does. I think she's still trying to make that call, still trying to reach out. What do I do? How do I help her? I don't know, but maybe you need to tell her you heard her, that you're sorry, that you know she was scared and alone, but she doesn't have to be anymore. How do I tell a ghost that? Go to the house? Talk to her? Or, if you can't do that, have someone do a ceremony, a cleansing. something to help her move on. She was quiet again. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. Processing. Officer Coho, would you come with me? To the house? I don't think I can do it alone. I should have said no. Should have told her I was off duty, that it wasn't my job, but I didn't. When do you want to go? Today. This morning. Before I lose my nerve. All right, I'll meet you there at noon. Thank you. Thank you so much. We hung up. I sat in my car in the station parking lot wondering what I'd just agreed to. Taking a grieving daughter to her dead mother's haunted house. That wasn't in any police manual I'd ever read. But it felt right. It felt necessary. I drove home and tried to sleep, but couldn't. My mind kept replaying the night's events. The footprints that led nowhere. The static in the voice. The figure in the doorway, reaching. At 11:30, I gave up on sleep and drove back to County Road 9. The desert looked different in daylight. Less menacing. Just empty red earth and scattered vegetation under a pale blue sky. The house came into view as I crossed the cattle guard. Just a small building with a blue door. Nothing special about it. But I could feel it as I got closer. That heaviness. That sense of something waiting. A silver sedan was parked outside. Martha's daughter stood next to it, arms wrapped around herself despite the warmth of the day. I pulled up and got out. Ms. Nez, thank you for coming. She looked like her mother. Same bone structure, same dark eyes, but younger, healthier, alive. You ready? I asked. No, but let's do it anyway. We walked up to the front door together. The blue paint was faded and peeling. The wood beneath was weathered and gray. She pulled out a key and unlocked the door. It swung open with a creak. The smell hit us first. Not death. That had faded weeks ago. But something else. Stale air. Dust. The smell of a place that had been closed up too long. We stepped inside. The front room was exactly as I remembered it. Small kitchen table, wood stove, couch. Everything neat and orderly. Except for the radio. It was sitting on the table just like before. The dial was dark. But as we stood there, it flickered. Just once. Just for a second. Martha's daughter saw it too. She gasped. "Mom?" she said quietly. The radio flickered again. "Mom, it's me. It's Sarah." The radio stayed dark, but from somewhere in the house we heard it. That same raspy breathing. Sarah took a step toward the bedroom. I followed close behind. The breathing grew louder as we approached. The bedroom door was closed. Sarah reached for the handle, hesitated, then opened it. The room was dark. Curtains drawn. But I could make out the shape of the bed, and on the bed, a figure. Sarah gasped and grabbed my arm. The figure was Martha, or the shape of Martha, translucent, flickering, like an image projected on smoke. She was lying on her side, one arm stretched toward the nightstand, toward the phone. "Mom," Sarah whispered. The figure didn't move, just kept reaching. Kept trying. Sarah walked into the room. I stayed in the doorway, hand on my flashlight. "Mom, it's me. I'm here now. I'm sorry I didn't come sooner. I'm sorry I didn't answer your call." The figure flickered more intensely. The breathing became more labored. "I got your message. I heard it. I didn't know. I didn't know you were..." Her voice broke. I should have known. I should have felt it. The room grew colder. My breath came out in clouds. Sarah knelt beside the bed, tears streaming down her face. "You don't have to keep trying anymore, Mom. I'm here. I heard you. You're not alone." For a long moment, nothing happened. The figure just kept reaching, kept breathing that awful wet sound. Then Sarah did something I didn't expect. She reached out and took the phantom hand, put it in her own. The figure stopped moving. The breathing eased. "It's okay, Mom. You can rest now. You can let go." The figure turned its head, looked at Sarah, and for just a second I saw Martha's face clearly, no longer gaunt and hollow, peaceful, whole. She smiled, then she faded, like morning mist under the sun. The breathing stopped. The cold dissipated. The room returned to normal. Sarah stayed kneeling there, holding empty air where her mother's hand had been. She was sobbing quietly. I gave her a minute. Then I walked into the room and put a hand on her shoulder. "She's gone," Sarah said. "Really gone this time?" "Yeah, I think so. Do you think she's okay? Wherever she is now?" "Yeah, I think she's fine." We walked back out to the living room. The radio on the table sat dark and silent. I had the feeling it would stay that way. Sarah wiped her eyes. "Thank you for this. For believing me. For helping her. That's the job." "No. The job is catching criminals and writing tickets. This was something else. This was kindness." We left the house together. I locked the door behind us, and Sarah took the key. "What will you do with the place?" I asked. "Sell it, I think, but not right away. I'll have someone come do a blessing first. Make sure it's really clear. Then maybe a young family can make new memories here. Good memories." "That sounds right." She got in her car, and I got in mine. We drove away together, back across the cattle guard and onto the main road. As I drove, I checked my rearview mirror one last time. The house was just a distant shape now, small and insignificant against the vast desert, but it looked peaceful, like maybe finally it could rest. The next night, I drove past County Road 9 on my patrol. I didn't stop, just slowed down as I passed the turnoff. In the distance, across the dark desert, I could see the house, dark and silent. No lights, no glows, nothing. It looked peaceful, like maybe, finally, it could rest. I never got another call to that address. The rancher never reported lights again. Harold Benally told me a week later that the place felt different now, quieter, more settled. The house sat empty for 6 months before the family sold it to a young couple from Flagstaff. They renovated it, fixed the roof, painted the walls, replaced the windows, made it new again. I drove by once after they'd moved in. Smoke was coming from the chimney. Lights were on in every window. A truck was parked outside. Children's toys in the yard. It looked like a home again. One night, about a year after we found Martha, I was having coffee with Reyes at a truck stop in Chinle. We were talking about nothing in particular, just killing time before our shift started. "You ever think about that house?" he asked suddenly. "The one on County Road 9? Sometimes. I still don't understand what happened that night, what we saw. Maybe we're not supposed to understand it." "You really think it was her? Martha Nez?" "Yeah, I do." "Why, though? Why did she linger? Why couldn't she just move on?" I thought about that for a moment. About all the lonely calls I'd responded to over the years. All the people who died alone, reaching out for help that came too late, or not at all. Because she needed someone to hear her, I finally said. She needed to know that someone cared, that someone came, even if it was too late. And that was enough, just knowing someone heard. Sometimes that's all any of us need, to know we're not alone in the dark, to know someone's listening. Reyes was quiet for a moment. Then he raised his coffee cup. "To Martha Nez, and to everyone else who calls out in the night." I raised mine, to making sure someone answers. We finished our coffee and headed out to start our shifts. But sometimes, when I'm on patrol late at night, I think about Martha Nez. about how she died alone, reaching for help that never came in time. And I think about how death isn't always the end. Sometimes it's just another call that needs answering. I keep my radio on at night, volume up, even during the quiet hours, just in case someone's trying to reach out, just in case someone needs to know they're not alone. Because that's what this job is really about. Not the arrests or the reports or the regulations. It's about being there, being the voice that answers when someone calls. Even if that call comes from somewhere beyond the living, even if it comes at 3:15 a.m. on a cold night in February, even if it comes from a house on County Road 9 with a blue door and a radio that doesn't work. I'll answer every time. Because maybe that's all any of us really want in the end. To know that someone heard us, that someone cared enough to listen, that when we called out into the darkness, someone called back. I learned something important from Martha Nez. I learned that the worst thing that can happen to a person isn't death. It's dying alone. It's calling out for help and getting only silence in return. It's the fear that nobody will know, nobody will care, nobody will remember. 3 months after the house was sold, I got a letter. It was from Sarah Nez, Martha's daughter. She wrote about how she was doing better, how she'd finally forgiven herself for not answering that call, how she'd started calling her own daughter more often, making time for the people who mattered. At the end of the letter, she wrote, "My mother spent her last moments alone and afraid, but she didn't die forgotten. Because of you, she was found. Because of you, she got the closure she needed. Thank you for hearing her call when no one else could." I keep that letter in my locker at the station. Sometimes, on hard nights, I take it out and read it. It reminds me why I do this job. Why I drive these empty roads at 3 in the morning. Why I answer calls that other people might ignore. Because somewhere out there, someone's always calling for help. And someone needs to answer. Last week I got a new partner. Kid, fresh out of the academy. Eager and nervous. On his first night, we drove past County Road 9. "What's out that way?" he asked. "Just some houses, nothing special." "You ever get called out there?" I thought about Martha, about the radio that shouldn't work, about the figure in the doorway, reaching. "Once," I said. "Long time ago." "What was it?" "Wellness check. Woman living alone. Needed someone to make sure she was okay." "Was she?" I looked out at the dark desert, at the vast emptiness, at all the lonely houses scattered across the reservation, each one holding someone who might need help someday. "Eventually," I said. Eventually she was. We drove on in silence. My radio crackled with routine traffic. Dispatch calling other units. Officers checking in, the normal sounds of a normal night. But I keep the volume up, just in case.